Warning: this is a show where we talk about our favorite characters in media, so this may be full of spoilers throughout the entire episode. We apologize if that's not quite your thing, but we do hope that you enjoy anyway. Oop, get the thing on. Hello!
It was Cthulhu all along.
It's always Cthulhu all along. But hello, and welcome to Power Casual Presents 5 Hit List. Tonight, we're talking tabletop games and all that entails.
Very broad.
Very broad. This topic we decided to do kind of last minute, which'll work out in everybody's favor because we did not talk about the rules almost at all this time.
Which means it may be hard to break said rules when you haven't made them yet.
Exactly, but it's sure to give us some good some good discussion points about, like, is that game even a tabletop game? We'll see.
My number 5 is playing StarCraft at my kitchen table.
That's not no. Just because the laptop's on a table does not mean.
Yeah. No,
See,
no. This is my topic.
I'm sure that it's going to be Sean that somehow makes me mad. That's typically how these have been going so far. So,
I don't know.
Four
Silent
episodes
Protagonist
in.
really seemed to touch a nerve. So,
I mean, last week for video game soundtracks, Audible was one of them.
Audible and Spotify were an honorable mention.
Yeah, but still. Anyway. To introduce who we got this year, Jesus. This
year's episode.
This year's episode. We're not doing another one of these until May 27th, 2022. But no, tonight we got me.
Don't jinx
Ian.
it.
I'm here. I'm always on this channel. Below me, we have Brian. And next to Brian, returning for his third episode with us, we have Thomas. And last but not least, we have Sean. So, tabletop games. Like we just said, very broad category. Very little discussion about what falls into the umbrella of tabletop game. There was very little discussion about how much board needs to be there, how many miniatures, how many cards. Like, almost none of that was discussed. So we're all kind of firing blind here.
I wanted it to be very, very broad for specific reasons. I wanted to see what people thought a tabletop game really entailed. So
okay,
yeah.
Okay,
intentional.
Okay.
Well, although before we really get started, Sean and I were talking, and we came up with some predictions. Despite there not being a set amount of rules, we have predictions on what's going to happen with these lists. So I've made a prediction, and Sean has made a prediction that at least one game
will show up on 3 lists.
At least 3 lists, if not all 4.
And then one game will show up on 2 lists. And then everything else is a free-for-all.
Yeah, so we'll reveal those if they come true or at the end, whichever comes first.
All right. Love it. So, who wants to go first with their number 5? Actually, I'll go. I don't think I've done a number 5 yet. I don't think I've kicked off.
You haven't started off before?
Yeah, I don't think so. So I'm gonna do
it.
All right. So my number 5, while it may not be a crazy popular game among tabletop and board game enthusiasts because we're all a little bit past it at this point, I felt that it needed to be included as a sort of gateway game. Is
it Candyland?
No, it's not Candyland, though. That's You're on the right track, sort of. Now, my pick was, if I can find the thing, there we go, Settlers of Catan.
Fuck that game.
See, we're starting right now.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yep. Because this is the exact reaction I expected, because we've all played it, we've all argued about it, like we've all been there. But for me, Monopoly also
Also, friends destroying game.
Oh yeah, exactly. But like that's the thing. Everybody has played Catan at this point, and for me, Catan was one of the first like non Parker Brothers, Milton Bradley board games that I ever played. Like for me, that's where all of the board games came from. Was one of those big Monopoly, Parcheesi, Scrabble board game companies. This was the game that opened up the world of third-party board games for me. To the point where like I had a friend. Also, it didn't hurt that I had a friend who was real into it and bought every expansion, and then made his own boards out of specialty woods. Like when the stone tiles are made out of Purple Heart, it definitely does bring a little bit of gravitas to the game.
Did he have to trade resources to get said wood to make said board?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure he did. I have, like, his wood supply chain I never really fully understood, because we were definitely in high school at the time.
Look at all these rocks I got. You want some rocks for your Purple Heart wood?
Maybe.
I got some sheeps.
I don't know. His dad was a contractor, so he might have been some rocks lying around. I don't know.
I'm gonna say I think the resource that he traded for wood was probably dollars.
The sixth resource, yeah.
Then they're not a real fan. GTFO. Okay, I understand a lot of people love this game.
But it is.
I hate it.
It's definitely like it is kind of played out. It's to the point where you go down to your friends for board game night, and someone says, who wants to play Catan? Crickets.
Yeah, it's an important step in the acceptance and development of the board game hobby.
Yeah.
So it's a valid pick. It's not like you're throwing up solitaire or something weird like that. It's a real board game. It's a valid pick. It's just, you're right. It's been lapped by a few other games at this point, but not bad.
It just destroys friendships.
It does.
Like you see how you kind of find out how cutthroat, some of your friends are.
Somebody's.
And they'll be like, I'll only trade this for you if you give me like 3 of that. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, somebody's the brick baron of the world. They're just on all of the brick tiles, and they trade nothing.
This game's where I learned how to lie, because I would just say, "Oh, I'll trade you this," and then I would trade the cards face down.
Oh God, that's gotta be against the rules?
That's brutal.
Not.
Yeah. There's like so many ways people play this game that just like drive me crazy. Like then there's definitely been people who've been the oh, but I'm losing. Don't, help me out. Oh, and then like they win at the end, and I just want to like rip their nose off.
Yeah, you're losing, but why do you have longest road? Come on.
Yeah. What a bunch of baloney.
Maybe you just played with shitty people.
Yeah, maybe what I really found out is everyone I've been friends with that plays this game.
Ryan, who's the last person you played Catan with? Was it Thomas? Uh-oh.
No, he had a well-developed hatred of Catan before I think I even knew him. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I tried playing it again like a few years ago with some of my friends at work from a former job, and it just like really locked me in even further into hating the game.
I have a game suggestion for you that we'll talk about later.
Is there anything else from that Settlers?
It's different than Settlers, but it's got some Settlers kind of vibes and feels to it. So.
Okay. All right.
I can definitely understand why if you had your big play cut off by somebody building a road enough times that you would just develop a hatred of that game. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, also, like, I played it. I feel like at least half the times I've played the game, I've gotten in a bad rut where I'm not even really playing the game. I'm just rolling a die and getting stuck with something.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm just watching everyone else play the game.
Yep.
And then the thief keeps landing on me and stealing my shit.
Yep.
Damn, Robert.
Yeah.
Screw that guy.
Yeah, it's super fun. And like, it's weird because like this is one of the few board games that's like just a board game, doesn't have anything else that it makes, that is also a bumper sticker that people put on their cards.
Oh yeah.
Pretty proudly.
Oh yeah. No, it's managed to like pervade popular culture like in a way that a lot of the board games and tabletop games that we're going to talk about tonight just haven't. What is
Yeah. Like even places that only have like mainstream board games will usually have Settlers somewhere.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Like yeah, it was one of the first like they sold that at Target before Target developed the board game section that they actually have right now, which is actually decent, weirdly.
Yeah.
But enough about Catan.
Yes, please.
I mentioned it. We can move on. So, Sean, what's your number 5?
Right. My number 5 is one of the best board gaming values that I've ever gotten in my whole life. And it is one of my favorite cooperative games ever because you are working together towards an end goal. But sometimes it gets a little chaotic because it is a programming game where you are setting up your little mechs to do things and they run around and do stuff and you don't have complete control over what they're doing. And this is mechs versus minions.
This is a fun game.
This game is fantastic. All the different scenarios are unique and interesting. The characters, there are 4 of them that you can choose from, are all unique in their own way. And just this box is huge. And to look it up, look at the insert and the amount of minis you get in it. You get like 100 plus minis, and the game's only $80.
Yeah, it's not for that many minis. That's not bad at all, regardless of what the minis even are.
Yeah, and the card stock is all nice and thick, but it's just such a fun game because Thomas mentioned Robo Rally in the chat, and Robo Rally has that same feel, but people end up hating each other because you're competing, and I got in your way when I was trying to do this thing because my mech got into the spot where he wanted to be. But when you're working together, it's so much fun, and it's funny when you like, oh, I accidentally got you here, and I pushed you into a bomb, and then I exploded a bunch of guys, and it was great. It's just a lot of fun. It's and I didn't mention my criteria for my list for myself. These are games that I own that I want to play really badly, but mostly I haven't been able to because reasons the past year. So Next versus Thing is
weird.
One of them.
Yeah, I think we've played it like once before the pandemic shut down, and I had a lot of fun with the game, and I want to play it again.
Yeah, I think I brought it over and I played with you and Thomas and Mick.
Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah. So it's really cool.
Well, I have played it, so I know that it takes a lot of the mechanics that were really fun about Robo Rally and takes out the incredibly frustrating competitive aspect of it. That's what made Robo Rally not fun. So taking the really fun mechanics from Robo Rally and putting it into a cooperative game was really, really cool. And the minis are awesome. So.
And the other cool thing is you don't ever die. Like it's not the worst that ever happens is you have little slots on your programming board. The worst that ever happens is you get these things that say, oh, you automatically turn left or you're doing things that you don't want it to do. You're still always in the game. You're still always there and always able to do things and repair your ship. And it's just such a well-designed game. And it being the first board game from Riot Games, a video game company, and they did such a good job with it. It's really impressive.
Is this the game that technically made Riot Games actually Riot Games plural and not
It
just
is.
Riot Game?
I think this may have been near the beginning of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like these minions are familiar, and is that Tristana on the
that is
image
Tristana,
there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Are there
my
expansions
favorite.
for other champs?
No, and that's something that the community has begged for many times. Like we've been like, listen, we'll pay a lot. Just give me more scenarios and give me more champs. Like we've got all the minions, man. We've got all these boards. We've got everything we need. Just do it.
Yeah. It'd be so easy, just like a little box that has the
one more champ.
So
you could. I'd pay $10 a champ.
Yeah, they could definitely booster box that business.
Give me $20 for a champ and give me a skin in game. Done. Done.
Oh yeah, there'd be like exclusive Mechs versus Minions skins that you can also get in the game. Oh,
see, here you go.
Why don't we work for this company?
Yeah, here you go. Riot.
Reasons.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah. So all right. So Riot Games, if you're listening, which obviously you are.
You're one of the 7 viewers.
Yeah. So definitely give us expansions for Mechs versus Minions and be a better company. That's all we're asking.
But the 2 things that we want.
We hear that you're making advances. Get moving away from bro culture.
It's a step.
Keep
going. Step 1. Yep. Step 2. Mechs versus Minions.
Mechs versus Minions. Yeah.
Step 3.
And also, let me be able to play Yasuo all the time if I ever play your game again. Auto lock.
Could you imagine a Yasuo expansion into Mechs versus Minions?
It wouldn't make any sense. He has no reason to be in that game. But I would 100% love it.
All right.
Out of everyone here, why is this guy making robots?
Let's move on.
Yeah.
But Mechs versus Minions, great.
All right, Thomas, you are next. What's your number 5?
My number 5 is Ticket to Ride. My criteria for games is I was trying to pick games that had an impact on me when I first started playing tabletop games, and that I feel like have also had an impact on tabletop culture in general. And Ticket to Ride, in my opinion, is one of the best introductory games for people who are looking to move past Monopoly or what people think board games are supposed to be, because it's a great mix of, it's super easy to learn, it's got great artwork, and it's very colorful, and it has, I think, like kind of one of the games that is really easy to learn but takes a very long time to get very good at. So it's got a lot of value to it. And so yeah, I think just like from both me learning to play board games is one of the first ones besides Catan that moved past that I remember experiencing when I first started gaming, doing tabletop gaming with people. So it's one that sticks with me, and it's one of the games that I will never sell my copy of it, even if I haven't played it for 10 years. So
yeah.
Did we say this on stream, like what we consider like gateway games?
I mean, I technically did, but I didn't.
Really talk
I don't know
about
if we said that on stream or before.
I didn't specify it, but same. Yeah, this is the same vein as Catan was for me. And yeah, like one thing I do like, there are a bunch of things I do like that do make Ticket to Ride a better game, in my opinion, than Catan. Like, it doesn't destroy friendships anywhere near as often.
Yeah.
That's a little bit in there.
Oh, there's definitely a competitiveness. Like, it's still definitely you're a railroad baron. You don't have friends. But, like, at the same time, I also like that it does have that railroady feel. It's like, it's that great transfer from, like, oh, you always played the train in Monopoly? Well, I've got a game for you.
I don't think we even had the train piece in our Monopoly growing up. We had different sets. But This is a game too that like even though it can be competitive, one of my friends, Thad, when I played with him once, he would just like purposely troll people and just place one train car like in the middle of somebody's line just to screw them up. He obviously lost because he never like connected any of his trains, but it was just a really funny way to watch someone play that game.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed about, and one of the things I like about Ticket to Ride is that like you can deliberately try to block people, but it's almost always a bad idea as opposed to just trying to score points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless your block is just like a organic who's
Right.
racing to complete that line sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're just purposely just like rando dropping into somebody's train line, you're just being a DB. And it's not going to pay off usually.
Yeah. And that is one nice thing about it. Like there are plenty of games out there, Catan, I'm looking at you, where you can be a jerk and win. Like Ticket to Ride does not, it doesn't really reward that strategy half as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about having a plan and getting there before somebody else does.
Mm.
And actually, like concealing your routes is part of the strategy of the game too. If you start making really obvious plays of what you're trying to do, and someone comes in and blocks you, like, well,
of course,
if you telegraphed it, you
Yeah.
know, kind of set yourself up for it. But
Yeah.
especially not so much because if somebody was like, oh, I'm just going to go in there and block him. A lot of the time, it's because somebody else is like, shoot, I need that one too, and I need to grab it before the other person does.
And hopefully you can make your connectors before they can. Yeah. Yeah, and it's another one of those games, like just like Settlers is usually in mainstream markets to get people into different board games.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's my number 5.
All right.
So that goes to me.
Yeah.
So this is my only board game in my numbered list. There's some that fall in my honorable mentions. But this is a game that, by design, just has tons of replay value. It can be really exciting, and it's Betrayal at House on the Hill. I love this game because, like, everyone starts off like, all right, we're working together. We just got to find as much crap as we can, and you try and level yourself up basically before the haunt is triggered.
Mm.
And then once the haunt is triggered, for anyone who hasn't played the game, somebody is a traitor and suddenly is not working with the rest of the group. So you just have to hope that everybody else is leveled enough to be able to take them down and stop whatever haunt it is. So there's that aspect of excitement and co-op that turns into, competitiveness.
Mm.
It's got a fun balance with that. The randomness of it is cool. And also the fact that it's not like a lot of people think like it's the Betrayal at the Haunted House on the Hill because, that's like a movie series. But really it's just an ode to like every like horror or sci-fi trope that there is.
Oh yeah.
Like the haunt can be something from like aliens to vampires, or like the one that I feel like I've run into the most is the Dorian Gray one, where it's like you have to ruin these paintings because somebody's like trying to get immortality or something.
I remember that one.
Yeah, I feel like we've run into that one like 3 times. But super fun game and lots of expansions. It went out of print. Luckily, there's like more in print. But
it did get a second printing. It was really good that it got a second printing too, because I actually played it in college in the first printing, and the scenario books in the first printing were all messed up. They were really misprinted to the point where you almost couldn't play some of the scenarios.
Yeah, yeah. I remember trying to read some, and it definitely like wanted to continue on to the next page.
Yeah.
But didn't.
Yeah.
Or like what you were supposed to do was almost omitted or just worded so badly.
I have definite I love this game, and I have a copy of it, but I have definite problems with it. One of their big things was just like, yeah, we had like 40 different people write scenarios for this, and when I started playing the second edition, I was like, yeah, it shows.
That's too bad.
You know, it's like if you had 40 different people write different chapters of a book, it's like there's a huge inconsistencies in how the rules are written for the scenarios. But all of my complaints about it, and also my complaint is that it has the potential to be a horribly unbalanced game because it's so randomized.
Yeah.
But despite all my complaints about it, its narrative value is so good that it completely, as long as you go into it accepting that, it completely outweighs any flaws that it has.
Yeah.
I like the procedural board that, you know, the random board as that gets laid out as that goes. That's half the randomness and replayability. And yeah, sometimes that does mean that you end up with a coal chute that goes nowhere. But but still, it's just like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're in a situation where going to the basement is a terrible idea, but then you're in the basement and you literally have not laid the tile that lets you out yet, but the haunt's triggered.
Yeah, so you're stuck in the basement. I always like trying to build procedurally, architecturally impossible buildings, whether it's like building a hallway that goes around the front entrance, or like a second floor that's very much wider than the first floor, stuff like that. That's always really fun.
It's funny.
That was another thing in this first edition was you could definitely find the underground lake on the third floor.
Yeah, that's right.
Our friend Noah Cohen actually developed Betrayal at House on the Hill Legacy.
Yep.
And I had the chance to play test that, and literally every scenario I kept trying to put a tile in front of the door at the front of the house to the point where they wrote a rule and they're like, no, you can't do that. So there's a Sean rule. So
thank you. Although at the same time, I'm sad because that was one of my favorite things to do. It's like, how did these people get here?
I'm trying to remember. Was Betrayal the one where where the building can fly at one point?
Yeah, I've found that one a couple times. Like, it literally grows wings and starts flying, and you have to try and jump out and survive.
I have never seen that.
I've run into that one twice, and one thing I like about it is that's one of the few where the game remains players against the board. Like, there isn't specifically an antagonist character or a traitor. Your goal is just to get the hell out of the house.
Yeah, I think you're trying to find parachutes to jump out the house.
Yep.
I remember when we played that one, we looked at the guy who was playing the big dumb strong jock, looked to see what he had to do to find the parachute, and he's like, I'm never going to find that. So he just stood by the front door and clotheslined the first person that tried to make it out the door. And
yes, he did. That's right. I remember that. And I think it was like the little girl character too, so it was just like no contest.
So brutal. Yeah, great game.
Yep.
And a lot of what makes it fun too is like your stories of playing it. And there's a lot of board games where that can't. I mean, there can always be like a really funny story, like, oh, I can't believe someone did this that one time in Ticket to Ride. But with Betrayal, it's almost every game has like this interesting narrative built in, unless you all get screwed.
That's the whole point of the game.
On the procedure. Yeah. But then sometimes that's the narrative. The house was just screwing you over the whole time.
It's a great choice. It's really good.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Thank you. All right, so we're bumping to number 4.
We are. Yep. What was my number 4?
I think that's me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was you.
So Sean leading off.
Yep.
All right. So this one is, it's very difficult to describe, and it's one of those games that every time I've taught it to someone, you just have to sit down and play it. There's no describing it other than calling it, we're gonna play math. We're gonna learn how to do math. It's called The Shipwreck Arcana.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I've played this one. I've played your copy.
So, essentially what it is I'm going to pull out 2 tiles from a bag, and I know what the 2 numbers are. And it's a hidden information game, and I'm trying to give you as much information as I can by placing one of these numbers down on a set of rules that say, if the total of your numbers is less than 5, put 1 here. If the sum, or if the numbers multiplied together is dividable by 3, place 1 here. And you're trying to make guesses based on that. It's, like I said, really, really hard to describe, but every time I've sat down to play it with someone, about 3 rounds in, you just see a little ding, and they get it, and it just pops, and it's always such a fun little moment. And it's another cooperative game. You are working together, and it's just neat to see a set of relatively complex rules. I guess the rules are simple. It's the things change based on the cards that are out, but a relatively complex concept all of a sudden just resonate with someone. And every time I have to describe it, I'm like, we're going to do some math. It's going to be fun. I promise. I swear. No, trust me. It's okay. It's fine. And people might have been lying to me, but everybody says that it's fun. So
I remember playing it, and I thought it was fun. But what you just described with like really enjoying that moment where you see the light bulb go off.
Yeah.
That's like exactly why people become teachers. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. But yeah,
that's,
from what I remember, this
that's
was a really
perfectly
fun
valid.
game.
That's why I like teaching games. Is it's tough because I'm not a very good teacher because I skip over things and miss things a lot, but it's rewarding to see the gears start rolling. So
yeah.
So if anybody ever wants to play Math, let me know. I always have this with me because it's a little tiny box. It's just a set of tarot cards and then some little tiles in a bag.
That's right. Yeah. Well, maybe that reminds me. Like, if I wind up teaching math more often in my current job, maybe I'll just like pick up a copy of this and use that. Be like, here's an application of skills.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Your portability mention just made me think of a game that should have been on this list, and it's just going to have to be squeezed into an honorable mention now. There's no change in the list. So
is it Hive? It's Hive, isn't it?
No, it's not Hive.
Okay.
It's a game
it
that
might be on someone else's list.
It might be on someone else's list. I have played it with other people, at least one other person around this table. I'm pretty sure. So we'll see, but we'll get there.
All right. Speaking of which,
that's my number 4.
All right. Tom.
So Thomas, your number 4. Is it Hive?
My number 4 is Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't think I need to say any more about why I picked it, so I think we covered that pretty thoroughly.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of the games we've probably played the most in like some of our board game nights.
My copy is incredibly worn, so
yeah. But it's also one of those games where it's like, you know, sometimes people can't decide on what to play. I'm always down for Betrayal.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that like there are plenty of scenarios that you've never played, or at least somebody hasn't played. So
yeah, I mean I keep getting the freaking Dorian Gray or the Flying House one. So
my college group, we got 3 weeks in a row. We got the one person turns invisible, and it was the same person every time.
So you'd have to play the game 40 times to hit every scenario
minimum,
and you'd have to get lucky enough to hit every of those 40 like conditions.
Right.
Yeah.
And
like in sequence.
If you were to get 40 plays out of any board game, you got your money's worth.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah, for real.
Yeah, the fact that your copy is as worn as it is a definite testament. Not a lot of games hit that far where you've actually like
Yeah.
legit lost pieces and like tiles are worn out.
Outside of being like an irresponsible tiny little kid.
Yeah, beyond that, like we've all like seen or caused that in our lives.
Yeah. Or like had a dog that just chewed up one of the cards.
Yep.
So it's like taped to the back of a 3x5 card or something.
All right.
All right.
Brian.
Well, my number 4.
Yeah.
So the rest of mine are all like tabletop minis style. No, I take that back. Rewind. So this is a game I actually haven't played in years, but it got me into tabletop minis. It's Warhammer 40K. You know, one of the like the best
Granddaddy.
like, of like tabletop war miniatures. Specifically, Chaos was the armies that I always played. So my image here should have Karn the Betrayer and a Night Lord because I played Night Lords.
Night Lords are dope.
I love the lore, like the whole Chaos Space Marines story. Just like it's a parallel to the Fallen Angels and Lucifer and stuff. There are so many other factions in this game that are really cool, like the Eldar, Dark Eldar, but just like I found this game when I was in middle school because my older sister introduced it to me. And God, I have so many memories of just like trying to glue together Chaos Terminators, which back then were friggin' impossible to get to stay together.
Yeah.
Like rereading the couple of rule books I had, listening to like Green Day, just on loop. Like that is who I was in middle school, to the point where when I was in 8th grade, I had no friends in my grade that I knew that played this game, and yet I still decided I was going to try and make it my catchphrase to just say "Blood for the Blood God," which
I remember the tail end of that phase. Like we met long enough ago that I remember that.
Yeah. So there was one friend who thought it was hilarious, and so we would say that as our goodbye to each other, like our sign off greeting. We'd just be like "Blood for the Blood God." Like he had no idea what I was talking about, but he thought it was a funny phrase. Thomas, I know you have a really funny story about it. Blood for the Blood God.
You may have to remind me. I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
When you were walking around at college and somebody came, like, shouted out a window?
Oh, yeah. So we were walking around the campus, like, after dark. I remember which one. I was actually thinking of this. I forgot that I told you about this. We were walking around campus, like, after dark, and somebody, of course, we were college kids, so we were all obsessed with 40K at the time. And somebody in our little group was just screamed out "Blood for the Blood God," and somebody, like, leaned out a dorm window and said, "Skulls for the Skull Throne."
That's the best part. It's an actual call and response. Like,
yep.
Yeah, for me, like I applaud this choice. Like, I have never played a game of 40K in my life, but I do own an army of Space Marines, a full chapter's worth, and I have read at least 30 40K novels. Like,
they're so good.
They're good, and that's the thing. They managed to make, like, I've read descriptions of some alien being torn apart by a chainsaw so many times, but it's still interesting every time somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like flying through space on a ship that gets teleported into the warp, and then suddenly the ship starts like growing limbs and stuff. And, like,
oh yeah, and there's
crazy.
There's so many things where it's just like, yeah, this is just like you see 40K in so many things. I actually found out, if anybody remembers the movie Event Horizon.
Yeah.
At the
that
time,
could have been a 40K like prequel.
It sort of was. Like on a director's cut or a commentary reel, like they confirmed that one of the writers was a huge 40K fan, and it was like sort of like a at on the light end, a definite homage to the warp and all that sort of stuff. but on the other side, like maybe a script he never got to use because Games Workshop didn't have the money then to make a movie.
You hear that, Games Workshop?
So Brian, if Clyde and Scranton both survive, I'm cool with Blood for the Blood Gods.
Blood for the Blood Gods?
We'll just make it a thing.
Skull for the Skull Throne.
Like Thranton unlocks it on Berserker. Yeah, all right.
It'll be our Hail Hydra for each other.
Yeah.
Blood for the Blood God.
No one else will know. That'll be fine.
Yeah. I still, even though I haven't played this game in over a decade, I haven't played really since 4th edition.
They're on 9th now.
They're on 9th now? Yeah.
There is a point in the past few years where it's basically been an edition a year or an edition every 2 years. Like it's not amazing as from a
Do the old minis still work, or do they make you get new minis every time?
No, I think you can still use them as long as they're in the new codexes.
Yeah, if they're in if they're in the new rules, you can still use them. The catch is, are they worth playing anymore? Like from an army
that's a problem they've always had. Yeah.
New stuff is always off the chain because they want you to go buy new models.
Yeah. So like, you want Titans and like these giant ships.
That's the Magic of the Gathering effect right there, baby.
Oh yeah.
It's always been interesting to be an observer of 40K from the outside. Just like watching what armies and models show up on 40K tables throughout the years, where it's like, yes, I remember the aircraft phase when for like a year and a half everybody had just tons and tons of aircraft, and then they moved on to the phase where everybody had the little like mini Titans, and it's like you could look over and be like, oh, apparently Necrons are the hot thing right now because there's 6 people playing and 4 of them have Necrons. And like a completely outside of the bubble of 40K, I mean, I at least know enough of the lore to recognize things when I see it. But to look at the table and just be like, oh, apparently that's the hot thing right now.
Space Wolves are back. Neat.
Right, yeah. Must have gotten a new codex.
I still remember when vehicles were new.
Yeah.
Like in the 90s, they had like, oh, get bikers. Oh, now we're going to have like rocket pack people.
Bikers were
and then it's like,
for a long time.
Yeah, and then like big vehicles and tanks were a big thing, and that's when I kind of like got sick of it because the few friends I had in Maine that were playing it, one of them only flew those freaking Eldar flying tanks, and if it moved at all in a turn, you could only glancing blow it at that time, I think, unless it flew up to a melt-a-gun guy who just like happened to like wreck it. That was pretty much the only way I could find for my army at the time that could destroy it. Because Chaos, I mean, the game has also had like Games Workshop. Come on, they've had like stuff where it's been introduced in a codex 2 editions ago, but they still haven't released a model for it.
Yeah.
And then they finally do, and it's like
it's too late.
Does anyone even remember that anymore?
Sounds like Man of War Bombardiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, for like War Machine.
The upside is it is rare for Games Workshop to take something completely out of a codex in some fashion. So usually if you've got if you actually bothered to buy the model, you'll usually be able to use it for something, even though, again, like the unit may just be completely nerfed or tactically useless at that point.
I think the only exceptions to that are the factions, the shorties, which were like the space dwarves.
Oh, squats, yeah.
Squats,
they just wrote, like, they went from their goofy, like, phase pretty early, and they just wrote
super
stuff.
edgelord.
Yeah, they just wrote stuff out. Like, I actually found out, like, the term grimdark, to describe that sort of, exactly. Like, I didn't know it came from 40K.
Yeah.
Like,
it is like, and 40K is like the most 90s thing that the 90s could have ever produced, even though it was like started in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like everyone's got a chainsaw for a sword or axe or scythe. I think I'm pretty sure someone has a chainsaw, like a chainsaw scythe.
Chain fist.
Fist. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fist
which is just
definitely a
like the
thing.
middle finger is just a giant chainsaw. I mean, there's so much hyper masculinity in this freaking game,
Yeah.
and like some like downright misogyny. It's kind of
Oh well,
kind
that's
of not aged well.
it,
Like
it's
Sisters
not.
of Battle isn't even in a faction anymore. I don't think.
No, they brought them back. They're their
Okay.
own faction again. They've toned down the models a bit, so they're a little bit less like corset-y, iron corset women. But still, yeah, the fact that that's a faction is a thing.
Yeah.
But it does lean really heavy into the fact that there are no good guys. No one's good in this game.
Yeah, everyone's a piece of shit.
Yeah, even like humanity, who is supposed, the point of view character for the franchise, really,
The
is
Space Marines,
is
the Ultramarines.
yeah, is garbage. Like they're still like they use human slaves, and like failed space marines just become like mind wiped cyborgs that just haul
Yeah.
ammunition around.
And their whole conquest, like the Emperor's conquest thing, it's just like colonialism.
The colonialism and genocide. It's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, they
and it's bad.
they didn't want to be part of our empire. We'll virus bomb the whole planet.
Oh,
Not to mention an incredibly healthy or unhealthy dose of xenophobia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is it an alien? Burn it.
Yeah.
But they have cool stuff. No, not if it's burnt.
I think the one exception, like the one faction that can probably most arguably be the good guys, was probably the space orcs.
Yeah, just because
they just don't give a cut. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just they just live to fight and fight and fight.
Yeah. And their whole, I've learned a lot of this just from Mick, because Mick used to play them. Like some of their belief system is just, if they think it'll work, it'll work.
Yeah.
So it does.
To the point where they have rules like, honestly, red ones go faster. If you paint a model red, it gets a speed bonus.
It's so good.
It's great.
Stuff like that is hilarious.
Wait, that's a rule?
That's a rule for vehicles. Like,
All right.
yeah.
No, we're done. No,
Yeah.
we're out.
Anyway.
I think it was like second edition. There was a rule where it was like the orc truck can carry as many orc models as you can pile on top of it. But if they fall off, then they take a damage roll.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
They're
used to be a very silly game.
Yeah, they're like one of the only factions where a lot of that flavor's carried over, and they're still amazing on the table. Like the Green Tide, they're often called because there's so many of them, and their stats are all dumb. Like,
yeah,
they can't shoot worth a crap, but once they get in touch with your models, they're done.
Yeah, I feel like whenever you see someone playing, if somebody's playing orcs, that is the person having the most fun at the table.
Probably.
Just because it's so ridiculous.
All right. But
yeah, 40K.
40K.
It made a big impact on me. When I lived in Boston, it was like one thing that kept me from going insane. Strangely, reading stories and painting models about people going insane from being in the chaotic warp and worshiping chaos demons kept me from going insane.
Whatever works, man. Like, ain't no one recipe.
All right. Anyway, so Ian, you're number 4.
My number 4. Mine is also a minis game. Really, the only minis game that I have spent significant time and money on.
I knew this would be here.
Yeah,
Had to be.
It is Star Wars X-wing miniatures. Specifically, I'm going to say the second edition specifically. If we had to pick editions for a game, for a given franchise, I would definitely say second. Because they fixed a lot of broken crap. The first edition was, is still a lot of fun. And within our own little local meta, the people who got together on Saturdays just to play, it was fine. Because we just sort of house ruled, no one is ever flying K-wings with twin laser turrets. This is not happening. But second edition, they stripped away a lot of the fat. They did what they had to do and just redid a lot of the rules from the ground up, just to make the game more even and balanced and playable. Even though it did definitely start with like a bunch of rough patches depending on what ship came out when, and which ships got re-released and things like that. But this game, it's very. I appreciate it's for a miniatures game. It's very easy to pick up. Like it's moving ships around a table, and unlike 40K or some War Machine armies, at most you're going to have 8 figs on the table for the most part. If you're flying a TIE or a droid swarm, you might get 10. If you just have
well, I
nothing.
think that's actually a rule now. In second edition,
oh, did they
there's
cap
a
it?
rule. Yeah, you can only have 8 ships now. So
okay,
unless it's epic.
Unless it's epic, which is different.
Yeah.
Epic's it's got its own thing, but so and that's great because that means that a turn will still take a few minutes. But that's one of the things that did always turn me off about Warhammer. It's like, all right, I've got 4 squads, 10 guys each, and a tank. All right, let me move each of these models 2 inches. Give me a minute. Give me a minute.
Takes forever.
It's like Imperial.
Like someone's turn could take a literal 40 minutes to an hour.
Oh yeah, like Imperial Guard and Orc armies are the worst for that.
The way a friend of mine described 40K is it's an hour of setting up and 3 hours of losing.
Yeah. Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah. That is 100%.
Whereas X-Wing, a lot of lists are 3-4 ships, depending on what you're flying. And that makes, and especially the way that a lot of the ships move leads to a lot of nice dynamic turns. Especially if you've got somebody who flies a lot of interceptors, Brian. You end up with ships that are moving in ways that they really shouldn't. Somehow.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
But the thing I like is that it is also, even in the first edition, it was relatively balanced in this way. Like, you have someone who's flying an interceptor, okay. That's why you have turret ships, because they can just sort of point the guns where the interceptor is and blast away. You have a ship that can't turn for crap, well, don't get in front of it, because it will destroy you if you do.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm an enormous Star Wars nerd. Even got a Star Wars shirt on tonight. Like it's I just realized I'm like, oh yeah, I'm wearing my Dark Side of the Death Star shirt. All right. One of my 8 Pink Floyd parody shirts. But yeah, X-Wing is, and at least locally, the community is really solid. It's pretty good. There aren't a ton of people who I'm like, I will never play against this man. And this is also one of the few games where I was actually able to have some success at tournaments. Like with just I don't give a crap about the meta, I want to fly 2 defenders lists. Like I actually did okay flying against someone who flew a bunch of B-Wings when they were really strong, and just watching his face fall every turn as I just kept winning. It was amazing. That never happens for me in a tournament. I'm usually knocked out second round, so I love it.
Which is why I hate defenders. No, I wasn't. So to be clear, I was not the other person on that table at that time. But
he does hate defenders.
Defenders K turning to infinity. That is some bullshit. I hate it.
Yep. But
blood for the blood god.
But it's X-Wing. And one of the things that I definitely like about it, even with the changes to the rules that they've made and things like that, if you want, it is a game where you can buy your 3 ships and then maybe buy some cards off somebody, and you're done. That's all the investment you need to make. Like if you want to just have Luke in an X-Wing and a couple of Y-Wings for backup, and you have a build that you really like, that's it. That's all you need. You've bought 4 boxes, and you're done. Or you could be like me and fly 3 factions and have almost every ship in each of those factions. Actually, shit, it's 5.
Yeah.
I fly 5 because I'm an idiot.
Well, to be fair, 2 of those originally in first edition, it was just those 3 factions all lumped together.
Yeah.
And then 2 of them split off.
Yeah.
And then 2 more were introduced.
Yeah, but I still bought all 5 conversion kits when second edition came around.
I remember when it was coming out, we had a group chat, and Ian was like, I don't know which one to start with. What the hell am I going to do? But you wound up starting with like Empire, right?
Yeah, I went with Empire because I
And
think
then you went and bought the other two.
Yeah, I bought Empire, and I think that was a time where I think Thomas, you were getting out of Empire a little bit, so I bought a bunch of ships off you, and every time
You got all of my first order.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
right.
what it
The
was.
first
That's what it
order.
was.
I got rid of my first order because I didn't want to buy 2 conversion kits.
The smart
Yeah.
move. The intelligent
Thomas
move
is
to
the
make.
wisest
Yeah.
of all of us.
And I do like that. Yeah, they actually have managed to still make all 7 factions very different. Like you're not even the ships that are counterparts to each other, like the Rebel bomber versus the First Order bomber, very different ships.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, look at the Y-wing. It's gonna be in 4
Yeah.
out of 7 factions now.
Yep, and it's different
it
in
seems
every
like-
single one.
Yeah.
7 factions?
Yep, because
Yeah.
it started out with just Rebels and Imperials, like
Yep.
back in first edition, Rebels and Imperials, that was it. And then they introduced the Scum faction, the bounty hunters, the mercenaries, the people who have cobbled together ships and freighters that are all
the
tricked
Boba
out.
Fetts.
Yes, exactly, the Boba Fetts. And then when the sequel series came out, they introduced ships for the Resistance and the First Order. And when they came out, you just First Order was just an Imperial expansion and Resistance was a Rebel expansion. But eventually they both got enough ships that they released them as their own distinct factions.
Gotcha.
So that brings us up to 5. And then they brought us the Republic and the Separatists from the prequel series,
Oh my god.
bringing us up to 7. And that was where I said no. I couldn't. They're really neat. Like a lot of the Republic ships are really sweet and honestly really good, but I couldn't justify buying 2 more factions of ships.
Fool me 5 times. Shame on
So
me.
what you're saying is
Fool me 6 times. Shame on me.
Christmas and birthday gifts to get you into your 6th faction.
I mean, I won't be mad, honestly. Because one of the smart things that Fantasy Flight did was, even if it was a ship that you didn't want, it probably had a card or an upgrade that you did want. And that's half the reason why it's smart business and smart for players, for people who just get a ship. But it also does mean that I own a lot of ships I've never flown.
Now, are these booster packs, or are they you buy a ship?
You buy a ship. Yep.
Both.
Yeah. You buy.
That is the booster pack.
Yeah. But it comes with a bespoke.
They're not random though.
Exactly. Yeah. You buy the Y-wing blister. It comes with the cards that come in the Y-wing blister. You can look it up and see exactly what you need.
Yeah, and sometimes there are new ability cards that go with that printing, which was a problem in first edition because in a lot of cases that would be the only pack you could get certain upgrades. Yeah. So I own 3 Star Vipers, even though I've never flown more than one at once.
I own
with second edition, in second edition they made a decision that they would always be able to, or they would eventually release everything so that you didn't have to buy things cross-faction.
And they did. They did release boxes that are this is the Ordnance Pack, I think it's called. It comes with all the missiles that were out up to that date.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of it's if you want to get into minis games, it's a good entry to minis games.
And affordable.
And it is honestly pretty affordable, especially compared to 40K. And you don't have to paint the ships if you don't want. They come
painted.
They come pre-painted. The paint jobs are honestly really good. Really. For factory painting, it's really good. But if you do want to paint them, they're really paintable.
The studio that paints them has a bunch of other projects too, and for pre-painted stuff, they're really about the best one out there.
Yeah. When they re-release ships, they sometimes offer a new paint, a new paint job. Like the X-Wing, the T-65 X-Wing has 3 different paint jobs, I think.
At least.
Yeah, the T-70 has at least 3. I think they have 4. A-Wings have 3, like the RZ ones.
Yeah, a
TIE
lot of
Fighters.
TIE Fighters are. They have like different colors. It's the same. It's the same TIE
Stripe.
Fighter.
It's a stripe.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, I like X-Wing. X-Wing's my number 4. So far, like my criteria for gaming has been games that got me into an aspect of tabletop gaming. That's not my theme all the way through, but that was my theme for at least the first couple.
Cool.
Word. All right. So moving on to number 3s.
Indeed. So that brings us to Thomas.
Thomas leading off.
Yeah. Your number 3.
My number 3 is Coup.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a.
Because we've played so much Coup, and Coup is on my list of one of the most elegant, simple games that's out there. And normally I'm not somebody who is into. Some people really like social games where there's like, oh, figure out who the traitor is, and like lying is part of the game, and like that is part of Coup. But what I like about Coup is that it's a lot of not so much lying as it is bluffing.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of bluffing through action, not just straight up lying. Which, as somebody who's hopelessly honest, I have a hard time lying even for games. Which is one of the reasons why I started hating Among Us pretty quickly. So what I like about Coup is that it has that bluff, it has that deception element without having to just straight up lie. You have to lie to people. And also, I love the idea of social games. Most people do, but it's a game that has a lot of those kind of social elements without the unfortunate tendency that most of them have for the most alpha type personality to grab the game and run away with it.
Yeah.
Like if you're ever playing Werewolf, whoever the most alpha type person is tends to just end up running the game and telling people who they should hang.
Yeah.
Whether which is one of my problems
or not.
Yeah.
But Coup does not do that, which is one of the reasons why I like it.
I like that it also has a lot of, to go with the social aspect of it, there's deduction, like honest deduction and logic and reason has a lot to do with it. So if you're actually that sort of sit back and analyze the situation player, you're actually probably going to do really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're just like, I know how many Dukes are in this deck. And you 4 are not any of them.
Well, the first round, as Mel points out in the chat, the first round,
everyone's
usually people just pretending to be the Duke, and most times, unless you're playing against Tom Cadigan, most times you will not be called out until Dukes start getting revealed. But
well,
Tom Cadigan may just call you out
just
the first thing you try to do, no matter what.
Which is still a social aspect thing, because we know, like, oh, well, if we're playing with Tom, he's going to call someone on Duke.
He'll get you.
Because well, and that's the thing. He might not. You might actually have the Duke, and he'll still call you on it.
He's going to try and get you.
He's going to try.
It's like before the words are fully out of your mouth, he's saying...
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Coup Rebellion, which is the sort of expanded modular version of the game, which is really cool. But you're right, it is a simple, elegant game, and it's really, really well done. I completely forgot about this game, and it probably should have. It would have been tough to push Mechs vs. Minions off. It might have been an honorable mention.
The portability and...
I have a lot of games.
Yeah, it comes in a small box.
Yeah, small box. It's really portable. It's just a deck of cards and some tokens. And
it's like what, 25, 30 cards?
Yeah, not a ton. It's real quick to play around. I don't know how many rounds of Coup I've played waiting in line for things. Like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it also, even though it can be quick, the game can be freaking epic. So when I first moved into this apartment, I think like we had a big holiday party, and for anyone who's been to our apartment, we have a few rooms that you can play games in, and the dining room became the coup room. Some of us were playing like Smash Brothers or Mario Kart or something in the other room, and like taking turns. And it started off like someone's like, "Who wants to play coup?" And everyone's like, "What even is that game?" So they started to teach them, and then somebody else came over and was like, "I brought a copy of coup," and they're like, "Let's combine these two cards together."
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point in the party, which had been going on for a few hours at this point, I looked into the room, and there was like the dining room. We were out of chairs. People were standing around in a circle playing coup around the table with these two decks, and they wound up playing until like 1 or 2 in the morning. Just like coup never stopped that night,
Well,
from party beginning to end.
When the game gets that big, and it is weird how expandable it is in that regard. 2 decks, just throwing them together doesn't affect the game in a negative way. So, but then it just makes it really interesting. It's like shit. Now there's 5 dukes floating around right now, and
6.
there's 3 more and there's more in the deck. And then
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, he was
But then
Tessa last turn, but then he had to trade a card and trying to keep track of 8 people is now a rat's nest in your head. So that's when you do get people just be like, "Screw it. You're not an ambassador. I know you're not."
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I thought about coup when I was making my list, and it's a very good pick. But this is one of those things that I was wondering would happen. Like, coup is basically a card game with some money tokens.
Yep.
And we're calling that a tabletop game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you do need to play it on a table or floor or some kind of surface.
Well, I mean, you need, like most card games you do. Like poker, you should have a surface for the deck.
Yeah.
but I would say
still tabletop.
Okay, well, we're saying poker's a tabletop game now? Okay.
Yeah, I would say so.
I'd like to point out that Twister has an entry on Board Game Geek, so whatever that silly thing was back from the 90s, the elephant that blew butterflies out of its trunk. There's some very heated debate on the forum page for that about whether or not it should be on Board Game Geek.
Well, we'll get there. All right.
Well, I think a good argument for Twister is it comes in a cardboard box, just like a board game.
Right.
But
it's got a spinner that's on a cardboard.
So does StarCraft 2.
I was going to say, to be fair, so does a box of spaghetti.
No, but a box of spaghetti isn't going to fit on like your stack of board game boxes.
Well, neither are a couple of people playing Twister. Like, you got to have a big ass table. Anyway,
depends on where you work. All right, my third. Moving on. My third is another minis game. It's one that I spent ludicrous amounts of money, and I still have most of my models, and that's War Machine. I'm specifically saying the 2.5 edition, I guess, because the beginning of second edition was kind of bad for the faction I played, which was Retribution of Syra. But then about halfway through second edition, things were starting to get really good balance. Like factions were kind of getting what they needed to compete, because it's a very competitive game. It's the only like tabletop game that I've traveled across a state line to compete in. Years ago now, Tom, Mick, and I created a team, and we did a team tournament in Massachusetts.
Not this Tom, another Tom.
Yeah, Tom Cadigan. And we named our team. We didn't have a name, so we decided we were going to be called I Want to Be Called Spaghetti. And in hindsight, we wish we'd made shirts for it, but we didn't. We totally lost, but it's a game I got super into. It's like steampunk, but it's really like diesel punk. Like it's like diesel punk D&D, where like these warcasters control giant steam powered robots and punch the hell out of each other. And there's a bunch of troops. The faction I played was like a bunch of angry elves who just wanted to genocidally murder every human on the planet.
I played the crazy fire cleric.
Yeah, my cat sleeping over here. He's named after my favorite character, which is in the image here. His name is Gareth. Doesn't have a last name, but he's just basically an angry old man assassin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I named my cat after him because I thought my cat was going to be a brutal killer. He's not. Not very good at killing things. And then sometimes I forget that I named him after an angry elf murderer. Because I haven't played War Machine in a long time.
That's because you say his name's like Garrett.
It's true. I've never done that.
See, I like...
Not even one.
One thing, I don't know War Machine as much as I know 40K, but I do like that depending on the edition, the rules are much more, like, they're simple, and they encourage you to just go ham on the other guy. Like,
yeah.
Like, there's tactics and strategy to be sure, but, like, it wants you to run your mechs together and make them fight.
Yeah.
I
At least
really love the world. The world building and the lore is really, really cool. To the point where I've bought multiple RPG books to try and facilitate playing in this world.
Yes.
The minis game was a bit much for me. I didn't love it, but it's a really good pick.
Yeah, the lore is incredible. I think it's one of the best things going for it still. Yeah, like Thomas and I have been part of Iron Kingdom's campaigns that take place in this world. And it's actually how Thomas and I really became friends, at least at first.
You
really
say that like
friends.
you were enemies at first.
In a way. Well, it was between this and Nerf guns.
Yeah,
right.
that checks out.
Thomas and I became friends. Yeah. So that's, War Machine.
All right.
Choice. I like it.
Very good choice. All right. My number, 3? Yeah. My number 3 is a game that dominated our weekly board game nights for a good while. It and its expansions, because it was honestly unlike any... At that point, mostly through Thomas, I'd been exposed to a good variety of board games and tabletop games at this point. But then we all just kind of gave this one a shot after a PAX, and we all fell in love with it. And for me, that is, if I can find the button, The Captain is Dead.
Zombicide?
No,
yep.
Zombicide is very good, and it almost made this part of my list. But The Captain is Dead is...
I almost picked this.
It is an excellent Star Trek sci-fi parody, just to start. I love the core concept. It's just like it says on the box. The captain is dead before the game even starts.
Right.
And now you're the rest of the crew trying to get the hell out of the situation.
Right.
And there's a lot that I like about it. The art style with this like polygonal Max Headroom sort of look is really good. A little bit hard to tell what's going on sometimes on some of the cards or the minis, but it's still really good. I like that the minis, instead of just using meeples or plastic figs, they're actually on like transparent acetate.
Yeah.
So like it's a choice. Like sometimes in certain light it's a little hard to tell where your character is. But like it's just different and I like it. And I do like that it's a very cooperative game. It's you versus the board the whole time. And if you've got a player who decides to be selfish, you will lose, and it will be their fault, and everyone will blame them. But like, and it's one of the things I like about it is it's a ride all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
there are a lot of times we've lost this game. We haven't won it a ton of times.
Yeah,
But
it's hard.
It's hard, but it makes you want to come back because you usually get so close.
That's how
So
they get
close.
you. Yeah.
Like it's not like, round 5 around the board and you're like, we're not going to win. Like there's only been like one time where we gave up early so we could start again and try another round because we got so far behind like once. The vast majority of games we get into like phase 3 when the shit coming at your ship cards go from like yellow to orange to finally red, and stuff really sucks. Like very rarely do we quit or lose before then.
What I like, it really does feel like the more times you play it, the more you realize that it's actually a lot more of a puzzle than it is a game. Like there's 3 different versions of it, and our group has played each one at least once. And we found that like there is like we got good at the first one. Like we got to the point where I think if we had at least 4 players, we could pretty consistently beat it.
Yeah, we figured out the right combination.
Right. We figured out like what we needed to prioritize. And then I remember we moved on to the next one and we were like, yeah, we got this. Like we figured the first one out and it just absolutely spanked us.
Yeah.
It did. Yeah, we tried.
It kicked our ass.
It's a different puzzle.
Yeah.
So it's one of the few games I've played that has sequels like that. I mean they're all standalone, but where you weren't just like, oh, it's just a different theme of the exact same game. That it is enough changes that it really is very fresh, each different version of it, and makes it really fun to come to each new one.
Yeah, like totally different goals and stuff.
Right.
And we did get to the point where we figured out it's like, okay, well, if you have the admiral, the engineer, or not the admiral,
the first officer.
The first officer is really good.
Yeah.
The first
She's
officer, the hologram, the engineer. Like if you had those 3, it was pretty hard lock win. But then we were just like, well, what if we try? Because there's like 15 characters in the base game, and it's just like, well, what about these other ones? And we just like all swapped and tried roles that we hadn't tried yet, and it was like, this is really good, but we are losing so hard right now.
Yeah. We used to spend like hours after game nights at the end just like discussing strategy.
Like what went wrong? Like like almost a full after mission report.
Yeah. And that was super fun, like until we kind of figured out a good rhythm or combination of because there's like different categories of officers and you have to kind of figure out, well, with X amount of players, you really got to start with an engineer and something else to really have a chance at the game. If you try and beat the game without an engineer, you're doing something wrong.
Oh, it's real hard. You have to have a bunch of players. You can't do it with 3 or 4 without an engineer. If you have like 5 players, you might be able to squeak by, but
but somebody's gonna be trying to do those engineering things like outside of their base abilities, and it's going to be tough.
It's going to be really inefficient.
Yeah. Like we found what was efficient, and efficient is good. But then there's just a lot of fun stuff. Like one of the cards is the crewman. He's just like and we're not talking the red shirt crewman, who is also very good.
It's hilarious.
The red shirt crewman, much like a red shirt on Star Trek, his job is to go where the aliens are, die.
Yeah.
And then immediately respawn on the bridge.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. But there is another one who is just like an engineering crewman. He's one of the gray cards. And what he does is his skills are all crap, but he can carry a lot of cards and he can move really far. So his job is just to run through the ship screaming, just passing
that's
stuff
the
off
ensign.
to people.
Yeah. He's the mule. Yeah.
That's
Like,
the ensign, yeah.
and like that's his job. And you'd figure that's kind of dull. But when you're the gopher for 3 other players, you're always doing something.
Yeah. Tell me where to go. All right. Well, on their turn, they're going to do this, so you need to run over here and give them this.
And
Yeah.
it is so cooperative to the point where like if you're a new player and you're playing with some people who know, you catch on really quickly that it's like you don't make your own decisions, but at the same time nobody makes their own decisions. Like
Right.
every turn is like, okay, the situation has now changed. What you were going to do last turn isn't going to work. Let's talk
Yeah,
about what we're going to
'cause
do now.
Yeah, now the ship is getting shot by aliens, and we need to deal with that before we blow up.
Yeah. It was just on fire. Now it's on
Yeah.
fire and we're being fired at.
Yeah. Yeah. Or last turn we couldn't get our abilities. Now we've got our abilities back. Oh, but now there's like 4 aliens in that room over there about to kill that person, about to save the ship.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's utter chaos every time.
Yep.
But it is a lot of fun. And yeah, that one, and it's just goofy enough. Like a lot of board games for me try and be too goofy sometimes, or they try and be too grim. But then there's
Grimdark.
Yeah.
Blood for the blood god.
But then the Captain is Dead is this beautiful little balance in the middle.
Mm.
That's a good pick. I'm glad that you put that on your in your top 5.
Yeah.
I've actually never heard of this.
Oh,
actually
Oh, really?
Well,
you got to play it with us.
Oh,
It's
You
so
have to
good.
play with us sometime. I think you'd love it.
Yeah, you'd love it.
So when we first decided on this topic, my first instinct was to go to like minis tabletop games, and when I was like, oh wait, it could also include like board games, duh. And then the first one I thought of was this game because we've played it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a great pick.
It's funny because I got the reason why we started playing is because when I went to Gen Con, I went to one of the panels and they just gave me a copy of the 3rd chapter, The Captain is Dead, Chapter 3. And I broke it open and like read through the rules and I was like, this is really cool. And I looked at the concept of the other 2 and I was like, but I really like the concept of the first one because it's the very traditional, like Star Trek, the ship is in crisis scenario. So I actually ended up buying that one and we played that one first.
Yeah, I think
I still think the first one's my favorite, but
didn't like you and Zelda like try it out at PAX or
we
something
tried
like that?
We tried the Prison Break one at PAX Unplugged.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That was when we realized that the game was totally different, and we got absolutely spanked every time we tried to play it. And I don't think
I don't think we've played it yet as a group.
I don't think so. Or well,
No,
I don't know.
Definitely did because I remember you guys. We were like, this one is really hard.
Yeah, we did play it once.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that wasn't long before the pandemic started.
The end of times, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sean, definitely play this game with us.
Yeah.
It's super fun.
It's super fun.
Nice.
And now, your
Sean.
number 3.
My number 3. Whoop.
Oh no!
My number 3, Table Flip.
That is a fun game.
Oh wait.
Oh no, he's frozen.
Oh no.
Sean.
Oh, there he goes.
All right, here we go.
We're good. We're good.
Okay,
We
we're
did
good.
it.
We're good.
We got there.
My number 3, not to be dramatic, but has quite literally been life-saving and sanity-saving for me, and that would be D&D, 5th edition specifically, because that was the one kind of quasi-rule that I put out there. I was like, if there's multiple editions, kind of try and put the edition that you like, but it's not a hill I'm going to die on. Like, I don't really care. But 5th edition D&D has been a huge thing for me over the past year, playing with Ian and Brian and, getting into other campaigns and creating characters and all that stuff. It's been a lot of fun. And it is very expandable, very very adaptable. You can do quite literally whatever you want. And it's been a lot of fun. So Thank you to both of you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's been
Threaten's
great.
a ridiculous character.
He is.
Yeah.
He does some silly stuff. But yeah, it's been D&D has been before this year. D&D would not have made the list, and I also would not have said tabletop games. I would have made a board game list. But that's kind of why I wanted to be a little bit more broad with it. So yeah,
okay.
nice and simple. D&D.
Yeah, I would concur. Like D&D definitely deserves to be on the list. Yeah, I really only got into D&D maybe about 5 years ago now. Back when I was still living up in no longer than 5 years, Christ. But anyway, back when I was still living up in Bangor, um, like one of the guys that I worked with was just like, "Hey, we're gonna play D&D. I know you've played it before, like, 'cause I played like a little bit of 3.5, and then I played a little bit of 4." Um, and he was just like, "I know you want to play D&D. Let's play. Bring your wife." And that was the start of like a 2-year campaign, and I've never looked back at that point. And yeah, like having played 3 editions of D&D personally, I think 5th is the best one. Um, Even among just general RPG systems, it is very moldable to the table, both the players and the DM. You really can do whatever you want with only a few modifications. And for a game that used to be notably really hard to get into, like mechanically, the advantage system simplified so many things. Like you don't have to like the DM will keep track of a lot of the minor penalties and shit like that. That's the DM's job. But the player now is just like I don't need to know my flat-footed AC. I don't need to know what my attack bonuses is in this exact situation that I might use one time. I don't have to constantly recalculate my skills. Like it's just like am I likely to do a good job? All right, great. Roll 2 dice, pick the best. Like it simplified a very complicated game and made it so that you can just play and just sit at the table and be a doofus or an edgelord or a hero, whatever. Be a Loxodon paladin who grapples everything he sees. Like
blood wrestling.
Like
I didn't even want to do that. The DM talked me into it. I walked into there and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. And the DM went, blood wrestle. Okay.
I may have.
For those that don't know, in our campaign on Power Word Casual, Hellscape Navigators, Sean's character wrestled a demon in a big room filled with blood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Loxodon, which is like an elephant. So I just grappled a man. It was a demon, and I dunked into the blood, and then my trunk went up, and I had a snorkel, and so I just squeezed him to death.
Yep, like an anaconda.
Drowned,
yeah.
And I didn't. And everything was good.
And
pretty incredible.
And that was with almost no modification to the rules whatsoever. Like, he did a grapple check. He can breathe through his trunk just like an elephant. And he, like, used an action to knock him and his target prone into the blood. And,
the only slight tweak we made is that we allow me to do an unarmed attack to squeeze a bit instead of a strike. That's it. That's the only change that we've made. Otherwise, this rules is written.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the kind of silly epicness that you can just do and have a lot of weird, wacky fun. Like Brian's character Clyde just this week took off 3 dredges' heads in a single combat encounter, like a turn of combat.
Mm-hmm.
Like just in one turn, went slice, slice, slice. Took off 3 dudes' heads. Okay, just
yep.
Living the dream.
Yeah. Then we moved on.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even the impressive thing.
That was the first turn. That was the first round of combat. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Sean. Our Monday games definitely have kept me going this past year. It's been something to look forward to every week. And our current campaign seems to be coming to a close, and I'm just like even more excited to play D&D every week. It's an incredible game.
Excited to see what happens next.
Yeah.
I like that we are past the sort of societal phase where it's not the satanic panic anymore. Like it's something that my grandmother asked me what I do in my spare time, and I'm just like, well, I play Dungeons and Dragons, and she's like, what's that? Well, it's this game. It's basically our poker night, and she's like, oh, well, that sounds fun. I'm like, yes, Graham, it is.
Yeah, it's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
Except we pretend to be things, and we roll dice instead of look at cards.
Yeah.
Good thing.
Yeah, same thing. And then, hopefully, now that vaccinations are widespread in the thing, maybe we'll actually be able to have a poker night. Yeah, no, I would love to. Our only problem, and this is usually the case, is that Tom lives in Boston.
Okay, so Naoma has to sacrifice herself, and Tom's out of the campaign. Done.
Naoma becomes the sword.
Yep.
But yeah, so that was my 3. D&D.
D&D. All right. Yeah, I think what we're gonna do is we're going a little bit longer than we usually do because we're very passionate about our about our picks so far. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take a break now instead of after number 2, so we can split this up a little bit, and then we will try and motor through the second half of these lists, and we will see what the very best tabletop games are, in our opinion, when we come right back.
Cool.
Yeah.
Blood for the blood god.
Yes. Skulls for the nice chair.
Skulls for that dude's chair.
Hello, and welcome back. So we've done our first 3 rounds of the best tabletop games, in our opinion, of all time. Video games. We haven't actually done video games, period, yet. Someday.
Someday soon.
Someday. So it is now Brian's turn to go ahead and start us off with round number 2.
Oh.
Okay. So this one, I'm pretty proud of the art that I made for this entry. It's also appeared already on someone else's, so I don't know if this is going to be one of the predictions right here.
Oh my
But
god! What is on
It's
this?
X-Wing. It's X-Wing second edition, except I've made it A-Wings.
For those of you who
Very speed.
Very speed. Much fast. For those of you who haven't watched our usual Wednesday night Wing It Wednesdays, Brian flies A-Wings,
Pretty much exclusively.
period.
Yeah, unless I pick something by mistake.
At which point he will turn around. He will turn
and
the
go
ship
back.
around. Go
Literally.
back.
Get in an A-Wing. Yeah, so A-Wing second edition, that's my favorite. That's my number 2. It was really stupid to make this picture, but I'm pretty proud of it. Probably my greatest.
Yeah, honestly, I think you did a good job.
Yep.
Thank you.
Did you do this on your phone?
No, no. It looks like that quality. No, I wish I should have put the Doge, just like his head sticking out of a cockpit. I think that would have been the icing on the cake. A-Wings forever. So when X-Wing, I didn't want to say it when Ian brought this up as his number 4, but when X-Wing came out, I was still playing War Machine a lot, so I was kind of like, I'm not going to get into another minis game, and I was kind of like, oh, X-Wing, people are they're just capitalizing on it. It can't possibly be that good a game.
And then he found out A-Wings were in it.
And then I played it, and it's like my number 1 tabletop game.
I mean,
but it's not
a minis game.
Clearly not. Yeah.
It's my favorite minis game right now.
Sure.
And I do repaint my ships, but the ships come so crisply painted, and they're so collectible. Like, even if you don't fly the ships, like, we have them in our house just in a display case, just because they're sweet looking ships. A-Wings being the best, obviously. But yeah, there's so many different ways to fly the ships, and when you, as we say, when you thread the needle and you wind up flying your ship right between another ship and like between another ship and like an asteroid, and you've got the perfect arc on somebody, like, it just feels so good to pull that off because you had to eye it.
Oh yeah.
We've got a Gazanti cruiser on display here.
Just broke the turret off of.
Oh no.
High quality minis overall until you break a turret off. But
yeah, like Y-Wings are great. I love Y-Wings.
Y-Wings are in my top 5.
Yeah, like they're
for iconic ships.
It's just such a good game. Like, I also had my minis just kind of on display for a while until, like, I really realized that, I'm the one who always
display on it there.
I realized that we very rarely play at my place for one reason or another. We're either going to a game shop or a place where, like, more than one person who plays lives. So I just, ended up packing up my stuff for good. But it was, like, a really great looking shelf when I had everything lined up.
Did it get taken over by all the stuff you guys won from the Crane games?
Yeah, round 1 filled up that shelf quite nicely.
But yeah, Star Wars A-Wing. Second edition especially, too. There were some real problems at the end of first edition. Yeah. Things that were introduced and they didn't realize that they were going to break the game and just stayed broken forever. the way they've done second edition has been so brilliant, so easy for them to fix and update.
Because I remember the two big things that really stood out to me about the end of first edition. The first one was when they did a world championship tournament, and 7 of the 8 entries were the same list. Like
Yeah.
7, like the top 8 was the same list, and then one friggin' wild card that honestly I don't think anyone saw coming. Like it was one of those lists that honestly shouldn't work, but it got top 8, so.
That's that Magic the Gathering problem again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then there was like Loop and Chewy Gate.
Oh yeah.
Where there was a mirror match between like 2 K-Wings.
Yep.
And like a couple turns into the game, both players said, "Do you want to play this? Because I don't." And so they're like, "Let's go play Loop and Chewy instead."
And it was a streamed final.
Yeah, they just walked away from the table and they left a sign that was like, "We'll be back for last volley in like 30 minutes."
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like so terrible.
That's the sign that you've designed a great game.
Yeah. Luckily, second edition came out shortly after that.
Yeah.
So, but second edition has been awesome. I'm really excited for it. Although now it's going to be run by Atomic Mass Games, some of which are run by, like they've run the HeroClix for a while.
Mm-hmm.
They also had a lot of people come over from Privateer Press who worked on War Machine.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that they don't go too fully competitive like War Machine kind of was. Other than that, though, second edition's great.
It's already a competitive game.
Much worse than first edition was a pretty cutthroat meta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The other thing I remember from first edition was Dengar. There was one ship that was just too damn good.
Yeah.
And too good for the points. So what they did was they kept nerfing it by saying, okay, it can't take these upgrades. It can't take these upgrades. Can't take these upgrades. To the point where when you bought the first edition box, it came with cards that you could not use on that ship.
Yeah. Like you no longer could use Scum Astromechs on it and stuff. Yeah. It was bad.
It was just that they didn't test the design enough. And I've actually met over the course of the pandemic, weirdly enough, I've met a couple of my friends from England who used to test for FFG, and like their stories were just like, don't do that. Like every once in a while, sometimes the advice from the playtest would go unheeded, and it kind of showed.
But they're doing a great job.
Second is much better. Second is much more balanced.
Yeah. I still really want to get. There's been a recent expansion where they added more A-Wing pilots, the Phoenix Cell pack, including Ahsoka Tano and Hera Syndulla. I really want that pack so bad. I might wind up buying it online tomorrow. We'll see when I get paid. We'll see. I feel like I was going to say something else. I could talk about X-Wing forever. I don't know. It's good, and I miss playing it in person.
Well, I can do my number 2. My number 2 is actually going to be very quick. Because it is D&D 5th edition.
Oh my God!
I thought that was going to be your number 1 for sure.
I thought so too.
It was a tight race for number 1. I will say. And you guys probably aren't actually going to like my number 1, but it was a tight race.
I think I might know.
Number 1 is Lupin Ball.
It's Lupin Chewy. Hashtag Lupin Chewy gate.
It's back, baby.
Look, I love me some Lupin Ball, but it's not a board game yet. I do.
Tabletop game.
It could be a good board game.
I'm coming to Kickstarter 2020.
But yeah, I've already said everything that I need to say about D&D. I love it. It's been that thing that like it's the ready answer now. Like when people ask, "Oh, what do you do in your spare times?" It's like I play D&D. Like
how many campaigns were you and Ark in at one time? What's the most?
At one time we were in like 5. Granted,
Yeah.
one of them was like a long distance that effectively was on permanent hiatus. Like it's that game that if everybody wants to come down to Saco for a weekend and play, we will do it. But we haven't been in touch with those players in like a year and a half. And let's see, but yeah, we have like currently I'm in a campaign on Monday nights here on Power Word Casual at 7:30 Eastern. I am playing in an ancient Greek mythology themed game with some friends. Um, I am playing in a game that Sean's running, doing the Icewind Dale module. Um, Arc has a game that is currently on a temp hiatus. Really just waiting for the schedules to align again. So that's 4. Yeah, I think right now, like on the list is 4.
Yeah.
And then maybe if we want to, I could say 5 for that game that we haven't played in years, but would. Um, but like it's to the point where multiple people are having kids, so like chances are slim.
I definitely remember multiple times where you guys would come over for our board game nights and ask you what else you had going on for the week, and I was like, D&D every night this week.
Yeah, there was a week where we played D&D at least 4 nights. 3 nights in a row has happened more than once, and it's great. I mean, considering
and he hasn't quit yet.
Well, yeah, considering it's like one of like certain groups of friends, like the game that I'm playing, the ancient Greek themed game. It's with a dude that I used to work with. We used to share a cube at IDEX, and we would talk D&D all day between phone calls. So this is pretty much the only way that I see him now. And like same sort of thing. Like yeah, half the people in that game are people that I used to work with. So it's just like, well, I'm not dropping by the old call center anytime now. So so it's the only way to keep in touch with those folks, really. Same thing, like yeah, Sean mentioned, like most of my social engagement over the course of the past year and a half that hasn't been through work has been through D&D for the most part.
Has been through this portal right in front of us here.
Yeah. Like so many people, like this has been the life, and we just happened to fill that time with D&D. So it got me into streaming. In all honesty, D&D is the reason why this stream exists.
So thank you, D&D.
Thank you, D&D.
Good reason.
I said it was going to be quick, and then I talked a bunch. So Sean.
So my number 2, it really arguably should be my number 1. It's the game that I've spent the most money on. It is the game that I've spent the most time hyping and talking about ever since I encountered it at PAX 2017. To the point where I paid a bunch of money to get my face in the game, and that is Master of Wills.
Yep. And there you are.
Literally in the game.
I am in the game as a card, and it is such it's another one of those like simply elegant games. The only reason it's number 2 on my list is that it's only a 2-player game. Like realistically, it's a 4. You could play 4 players, but all you're doing is sharing the responsibility of 2 heads. Like, but all it is you pick something from the middle, and it has colors and numbers, and it says like +2 brown, -1 black. And if you take it and put it on your side of the board, you take a brown card, +2 towards you, -1 black, 1 away from you. It's just a tug of war. That's all it is. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most points wins. Now there are cards you can play, effects you can do, kill cards, get things back from graveyards, and double points, and all kinds of fun stuff. But the cyberpunk theme is really fun. But it's super simple to teach. And I actually had a running gag for a while, and this wasn't a gag as much as it was just a thing. I was teaching this game to people in person because I got it at PAX, brought it home, showed it to everybody here, and for years, multiple years, until like 2020, I never won a game. I lost every game. Lost every game. And I enjoyed every one of them.
That's amazing.
Because every time the game was pretty close until somebody, windmill slammed some big crazy, all brown cards get plus 10 points or something like that. Just some big special fun effect. And originally there were 2 factions. They're now up to 8. And I think that they are done with that. They did just tease some special thing on the website 2 or 3 days ago, so I don't know what that's about. But I did buy the collector's edition that has all the upgraded pieces and all the stuff. Has my art in the game, different community cards. It's such a fun game. But it is very hard for me to play it because it's hard to bring it to a game night and say, "Hey, everybody, let me sit down and play this with Brian." Like it's a tough thing to play.
Yeah.
But all said and done, it is one of my top games. Invested a lot of time and energy into the game, and it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. Should definitely check it out. And if you want, it's on Steam and mobile devices for free now, so you can just play it for free. Their system for getting new cards and stuff is not the most elegant, but
still though,
you can free to play it, so it's there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Master of Wills, and I'm in the game, so.
Oh, sweet. Definitely come by and teach it to me sometime in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just you. Nobody else.
Everyone else, shut your ears.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Thomas, you're number 2.
My number 2 is actually Catan again. Not because it's one of my favorite games, but just because of like culturally what it's done as far as tabletop gaming. That's the only reason why it ranks so high on my list, because I was really thinking about, well, like I was saying before, if I was just picking my favorite games, it would be a very different list. In fact, I think Coup would be the only one that would actually carry over to my top 5 games. But I was trying to do what I thought was culturally significant as well as significant to me as a getting into tabletop gaming. So, and I played a lot of Catan in college because we had guys who liked to play Catan. And we talked about all this already. So my number 2 is Catan. Moving on.
Yep, I concur.
All right.
Yeah. The only reason it wasn't higher on my list was it wasn't as special to me. Like I wasn't at everybody had that friend who always wants to play Catan. I wasn't that friend, but I had that friend. All right.
Sweet. So honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. There's
Start with Ian.
starting with me. Let's see. There's a bug on my camera. Stay there. Don't move. Just stay off the lens. That's all I care about. Stay out of shot. So, I have a few, and I've actually, going against my own personal rule, I've actually added a couple of honorable mentions over the course of this discussion. I don't like to do it. It's not an actual rule for the stream, but I don't like to go backsies. So that's me. But one of my honorable mentions, we'll just get it out of the way right now when I find it, is 40K.
Nice.
Because like I said, I've never actually played a game, so I don't actually know if it's any fun to play. But I do own 100 models that I've painted up, and they look great on the shelf. And I've read so many books. I owned a bunch of codices at one point, but I never bothered to play the game. Never bothered. The image is a bunch of Ultramarines fighting some Necrons.
Fight for the blood god.
And I like it. I have invested more time into this game and will never play it. Not even interested at this point.
But the models look cool.
They do. They look so cool.
Yeah.
One of my other honorable mentions is the game Root. This one did not. It's. I have to mention it because it is such an ambitious idea. The concept is that everybody is on the same board. You play on the same board. Everybody's interacting with each other just like a normal board game, except every player is effectively playing a different game. Because every faction in the game has different rules and a different play style and different objectives, which makes it really hard to learn in a short period of time.
Yeah.
Because, but it is a game that once you learn, and especially once you pick that faction that really works for you, like it's great. And there are, I think there's like 8 factions now. They
There are
recently,
expansions, yeah.
yeah, like they recently released another one. And the art style's beautiful. The board is great. All the characters are great. All of the pieces are wood meeples in the shape of whatever animal it is, be it foxes, crows, eagles, what have you.
My big complaint about this game is, and this is a production cost like issue that I know was never going to happen, is like in the base game when there were 4 factions, there should have been 4 rule books because 4 people had to learn 4 things, and you can't pass them. Like it just, we tried to learn it at a PAX one year, and it was like 10 at night, and we're just like, no,
Same.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Mick and I did a demo at East, and us and just 2 randos. And immediately after the guy left to finished his tutorial and we played like a turn and a half, the 4 of us were like, I got something to go do. This was fun though. I'll remember this. But it is like it's a really ambitious game, and if you invest the time into it, it is really fun. But it is a huge time investment. I would say even more than like Warhammer, where you actually have to buy and build and paint your army.
Wow.
I have actually played a complete game of it, and which most of the people that I know have not.
Right. I think you're the only one that I do know, in all honesty.
Yeah. And I think I may have even gotten 2 games in that weekend. That was several years ago. And it's fun. It's fun, but as soon as you play a new faction, you are learning an entirely new game.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You are getting your money's worth again, though, because you're buying 4 board games at once.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
The inherent replayability right there is pretty good, but but it is a lot.
It's a good mention, honorable mention, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
My third honorable mention that I have a picture for is the 1990s classic Crossfire.
Oh, that's a good one.
This was on honorable mentions because it is a one-trick pony. Once you play it,
but what a trick it is!
Exactly, like shooting ball bearings across the board at each other. Like it's the opposite.
That guy is really having fun on that box art.
And the commercials were amazing. Yeah. Like it's like this battle arena.
Song.
Yeah, it had a theme
song. Is
song.
Incredible.
Like it's this. Go watch the commercial. Look it up on YouTube after this is over. Like a kid is set on fire. He is like the loser is thrown into the depths of hell. Like
while the other one celebrates. Yeah.
And this was a game that I didn't have, but my cousins did. And it was just dumb fun. And it was that one, like, it was expensive for what it was because it came with like 100 ball bearings. That you would lose, like, and it was just reverse hungry hippos, really.
Yep.
Like,
yep. Yeah, that's a great way to explain it.
It was just a good doofy game. But I liked it.
I never owned this game, but I did borrow it from a friend for like 6 months, and we played the hell out of this game. It is super addictive.
Yeah, I would say it's
shooting ball bearings at a plastic ball bearing.
It's one of those borderline tabletop games for me. It's just like there's almost no rules. There's not. It's like the play system is actually it's more of a toy, I would argue, but still, there's a board.
Yeah.
My next honorable mention, I don't have a picture, but I do have the box. It is Sparkle Kitty, which is a game that we fell in love with at PAX one year. And it's a silly game where you're a princess in a tower and you have to slap down cards that have words and colors and combine them. It's actually really fun to play with kids, in all honesty. It's as fun to play with kids as it is fun to play with adults. But when we... yeah, go.
To add to that, sorry to interrupt. I've actually, I when I was teaching middle school music, I would play this game with my kids. And at first they were like, this is stupid. It's just like Uno. And then I was like, no, we're playing this. And then they started asking to play it all the time.
Mm-hmm. There is
the dumb Uno game.
And there is a rule. It's an optional rule, but it's in the rule book. If you swear, you get a penalty. So it is a perfect game to play with kids. Because you can point at it, you can unfold the rules and be like, it's right there. That has a bunch of expansions, including one where one player, if it's an odd number, there's a variant where someone gets to be a dragon who has their own like separate rule set and victory conditions. And I distinctly remember there was one time we were playing and I was the dragon, and Brian was honestly a little upset that I was the dragon because he said that he's ruthless. He'll do it. it's like a dragon versus the boards versus the players situation. And like Greyheed in the chat, like I've played this with the mercs, with the Mandalorian mercs at an armor party with adults and children, and everybody had a blast.
It's a fantastic game.
It's a fantastic
I wish I had put that on my list.
Yeah, it's a good game. And then the game that I mentioned earlier that I'd actually forgotten, it's not a well-known game, but it is called Cosmic Wimpout. It's a game that I've played since I was a child, and I like it a lot. A lot of the people that I've played with don't like it because I win a lot. It's a risk-reward dice game that comes in a little leather pouch, like a backpacking hippie would have, and comes at the standard board of play is either a handkerchief or a piece of felt with score markings going around the side, and you roll a bunch of D6s that have different symbols and sigils and numbers on them instead of normal pips. And it's a risk-reward game, sort of Yahtzee-esque. Made my camera angry. Where you have to rack up a score, and as you roll, your score can increase, or you can completely bust and waste an entire turn and get nothing. And it's a great camping game. It's a great game to play camping or in line at a convention, all that sort of stuff. But it doesn't rank super high because I don't know a ton of people who have played it or even heard of it. And
all right.
And that's my last honorable mention.
Oh.
Sean.
That means me. Okay. So, if you want to bring up, I just have the one image for all of mine.
Spelling. Where are you? There we go.
Does it say Spotify and Audible again?
It doesn't.
I really wanted to. I really thought about it. I was so close.
Ooh.
All right, so Dice Throne. The first one I want to talk about is a really cool game. It is what you get when you combine Yahtzee and Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
It is primarily a competitive game where you have two people, they both have health totals, and you're rolling dice to try and get little Yahtzee things, like, a straight or a full house or whatever. And those things do spells. Like if you're the Blood Lord, like the vampire, you can drain life and heal yourself and that type of stuff. And they've actually made a Dice Throne Adventures, which has a cooperative campaign type of thing built around it, which is a lot of fun. So that's one of them. The top left and bottom left are Reavers of Midgard and Champions of Midgard. They are two games from the same company, very similar. They are both Viking themed, just slightly different variations on how you do stuff. Um, Champions is a bit more about fighting monsters, whereas Reavers is more about going places and stealing loot and settling things, and it's more of a Euro game where you're just trying to get points as opposed to fighting monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And they're both very, very good games. I played a lot more Champions, so I feel like I like Reavers a bit more right now, but they're both great. If someone were to say, let's play a Midgard game, I'd be more than happy to play either one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Valeria Card Kingdoms. This is the one that has that Catan feel to it, because every turn, somebody rolls 2 dice, and it's just like Catan where there's 2d6, and based on the numbers that are on the dice, you have people from the community in front of you that have numbers between 1 and 12. And if there's a 1 on the die, you get whatever that person gives you for a resource. If there's a 6 on the die, you get that. And if there's a 7, like the 1 plus the 6 for a 7, you get that resource as well. So it has that Catan vibe where you're always paying attention to what everybody's doing on their turn, and you're always gaining resources, but you're using those resources to buy new community members to bring them to your side, buy new properties to give you special abilities, or fight monsters. And there's been a billion expansions for it at this point, where you're pirates and doing all kinds of different stuff. There's like a spooky shadow expansion, and it's my gateway game now. If someone's like, I don't know much about board games, this is what I teach them.
Nice.
Because it's so simple, it's very engaging, and it really draws people in. To the point where I've bought multiple copies for friends and just shipped it to them and be like, here you go, this is the game that you want to play. So those are my honorable mentions there.
All right. Thomas.
My first honorable mention is Small World.
Nope. Yeah.
Like, no, Small World's good. Good. I'll say no.
I didn't know which order they were listed as, so but we're good now. I get it.
There we go. So it's if you haven't played Small World, it is one of my favorite games to teach to new people, and has a lot of replay value because it's all playing different races in a fantasy world that are all a race and a modifier to that race. So you could have flying giants, or you could have tunneling vampires, or whatever race and descriptor you want to add on to it. But it mimics some mechanics of some board games that have come before it, and I think one of them was I can't remember the names of them, but I have played some of them. But it is very much simplified down to just conquering territory and trying to get as much use as you can out of your fantasy race before it kind of burns out, and then you put that race into decline, and you choose a new one, and then try to keep scoring with that. So because the game itself is so simplistic in its strategy, and it's not a ton of like dice rolling, it's a lot of the strategy comes down to knowing when you've done what you can do with your race and putting it into decline to start a new one is probably
it's not random. It's the decisions you make, which is very good.
Right. Yeah.
Especially for new players who who get frustrated with that.
Right. So there's tons and tons of expansion and extra content that was made for it, but I don't think I have much more than the base game, and I'm honestly okay with that. I never felt like I needed to have a whole lot more for it, but. So yeah, that's Small World. That was my first one. Why don't you just pop another one up there, and then run with whatever you get.
I think I'm going up the list now. I think I've got it. I think we'll see.
I don't
It looks
I
like
don't know.
it looks like it's ogre.
So Ogre is one of my few games that made this list. That would also make my personal favorite list of games. Ogre is one of Steve Jackson's games, one of the first games that he made. Yes, the Steve Jackson of Munchkin fame, back when he used to make good games, and he it is the ultimate question of asymmetrical of an asymmetrical war game, of one really good unit against a bunch of not very good units. And I think it is one of the best examples of a well-balanced and well thought out asymmetrical scenario, of the ultimate question of quantity versus quality. And I actually have a little bit of show and tell. This is a replication of the original 1978, 1979 packaging.
Oh wow! I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah, it was one of his first ones, and it actually has the $2.95 price tag on it. And this is literally just a black and white map. I think they're just two colors. There's a counter sheet in there that you cut out yourself with a pair of scissors. They're not even punch out. And that was the original scenario, which was a bunch of tanks trying to stop the Ogre, which is the artificially intelligent super tank. And in 2014, 2012, they did a Kickstarter for Designer's Edition. So while I'm doing show and tell.
Oh no!
Oh,
Here it comes!
Oh yeah!
Here it comes!
This is a treat.
What happens when you $900,000 and let him do whatever he wants.
For scale, Thomas is over 6 feet tall.
Yeah, so
that's not a small box.
When this came out, people were posting pictures of their babies in the box lid. And it did, and the interesting note about Designer's Edition is that it does answer the question of, yes, you can put too much in a game. Because I think the number of times that I've actually pulled out and played Designer's Edition, I can count on one hand. And when they came out with 6th edition, which comes in a pretty standard size box, I was like, oh, thank God, now I can actually take my Ogre game somewhere and play it, because there's no way I can transport that. So,
oh God, no.
So I think next on the list is Axis and Allies.
Should be nope.
It
is now.
Right. So the next honorable mention is Axis and Allies. Classic war game, in my opinion, the first war game that, first strategy game that taught people that global conflict can be a little bit more involved than Risk, which is just chucking a ton of dice and hiding in Australia. Mm-hmm. And the idea of producing units and what you choose to build being just as important as where you choose to send it, because it all comes down to chucking. Still, all comes down to chucking dice, but
much more strategically.
So, yeah. Right, strategically chucking dice. So I think Axis and Allies, as far as like global combat games, really ranks up there as really new for its time, as being something that was accessible, but with just enough depth and strategy to it to be really interesting. So I think that just leaves my last one as Machikuro.
Yes.
Which is very, very similar to Valeria. Was it Cards of Valeria?
Card Kingdom Valeria. Yep.
I own the damn game. You think I should know the name of it? Card Kingdoms of Valeria.
Oh, you own Card Kingdoms?
I do, yeah. Because I played your copy.
See?
And Machikuro is was the first time I was really introduced. I guess Catan does this too, but Machikuro is a very, very close to to Valeria Card Kingdoms, as in roll dice and everybody collects resources every turn. So I was trying to think of a game that used that mechanic that I was first introduced to and remember particularly stuck with me, and Machikoro is one of those. Again, it's very similar. You're building a town, and all of the different buildings that you build are what you're rolling on instead of characters like in Valeria Card Kingdoms. So that was just another one that I picked because I was trying to think of what games had particularly revolutionary rules mechanics, and Machikoro jumped out at me for that. So that's my honorable mentions.
I don't know if I've ever played Machikoro. I've seen it all over the place.
Yeah, it's got a distinctive box.
Yeah.
Yeah, the art style is very unique.
All right, Brian.
All right, I just have one picture. It's all on there. So a lot of these are either too new or I just have like sentimental connections to them. So the top two are Battle Masters and Hero Quest.
Oh, Hero Quest. Yep.
Yeah, so those are both games that kind of introduced my sister and I, my older sister Jet and I to like stuff like Warhammer and even D&D. Like Hero Quest, it's made by Games Workshop, who makes 40K and Warhammer Fantasy, but that game is also just kind of like a D&D dungeon crawling board game. It's super fun. Battle Masters is closer to like Warhammer Fantasy, where it came with a giant mat you had to play on. But also super fun. Then I got Marvel United, which I just played with Thomas the other day, but it was super fun, and I've already been like looking up all the different expansions to see some of the other Marvel heroes you can be. I know Sean also is invested in those games.
Marvel United, I have spent $600 on, but I'll be waiting on all of the Kickstarter stuff to come May 2022, baby.
Oh yeah.
So that will likely be up there on the list because it everything I've seen about it does look like a very, very fun game.
Yeah.
And all of I'm a sucker for expandable little minis and all the different characters and different player actions and all that stuff. So like this is straight up my alley. So it's probably going to be high up on my list someday. I didn't feel right putting it on the list because I literally haven't played it yet, but I'll spend some dollars on it. So
well, we played 3 games the other day, and I can already tell the simplicity is very easy to get into. Yeah. It can actually be pretty quick to finish a game, and then you're just like, I want to try it again, and I want to try these other heroes or against this other villain, and it definitely has an addictive quality to it.
Yeah, when everything comes in, I'm gonna have something like 50 enemies and 120 something heroes.
Heck
like it's gonna be something silly. So
nice.
Yeah, good choice, I think. Hopefully I didn't waste a bunch of money.
Yeah, what else you got on there? I see Arkham Horror.
Yeah, so Arkham Horror. Yeah, that's like my college game. The big way that I became friends with Zelda. We used to play Arkham Horror all the time. We became obsessed with it. We used to like print our own Arkham Horror cards, like custom made. Mm-hmm. We made some pretty broken characters. My favorite enemy that we made that would just wander around the town was a Goomba, and it had a special rule that instead of like doing normal combat, you could just slap it with your hand, and that would count as squashing it, and then you would defeat it. But yeah, so much time invested in that game in college.
Well, that's and then it's like an hour and a half to set up.
It's true, and it
I
took
think
us
I
forever.
remember when we were roommates, we lost one of our rooms to it for a week.
Yeah, when we first moved in
on the floor.
Yeah, we had a bookshelf that didn't have anything on it, so we laid it down as a table.
Yeah.
We played on that. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we never played it right until like the 7th or 8th time.
Yeah,
because we
that
were
sounds
always
about
getting
right.
some kind of rule wrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a crazy game. And then the last one is just like a bunch of the expansions of Zombicide, because we played that a lot, and a lot of those expansions are super fun. It's a fun little dungeon crawler that can kind of go unpredictably, and you work together to try and survive. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that and Zombicide, Black Plague, all of that, all of those related.
Massive Darkness.
Yeah, Massive Darkness, that related umbrella. Like those are great.
Yeah, I didn't. I remember when Zombicide came out, and a bunch of people were going crazy for it, and I was like, it's another zombie game in a sea of zombie games. I'm really not interested. And it wasn't until Black Plague, which in my opinion is their best iteration of the rules. I mean, there's only really pretty subtle changes between each different version. But it wasn't until Black Plague where I was like, all right, this is different enough from you're in a post-apocalypse city full of zombies. You know, it was different enough in theme, and I felt like they tightened up the rules and added enough interesting mechanics that I was like, yeah, this is cool. I'm gonna get into this one. But
And we have played that a lot.
Yes. Yeah, next to Captain, I think that's the only one that we've played more than The Captain is Dead.
it got played a lot when we were playing through the Massive Darkness campaign and somebody was missing because you can't really do Zombicide as an ongoing campaign. It just doesn't really work that way.
Yeah.
So if somebody wasn't there, we just end up playing Zombicide instead. So
yeah, Murder None.
Yeah.
Murder None.
Sweet. So those are my honorables.
All right. So that brings us back to one.
So we're number ones.
Whose turn is it?
I think it's me.
You.
All
No.
right. No. Wait.
Yeah, Sean. Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We started with Ian for honorable, so.
Yeah. All right, Sean.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So my number one, and like I said, this was a very tight. Like my 1, 2, 3 were all very tight, but when it came down to tabletop games, I really leaned towards board games, and this is the first one that came to mind. This is the one that I've played the most. This is the one that I like to play with people, and I like to introduce people to. This is Scythe. It is a reimagined, like, World War I era Russia, and there are mechs walking around, and you get to produce resources and fight other people and go on little quests, and it's just a very, very well designed game. My brothers and I and our friend Liz, we ran through the campaign, The Rise of Fenris, which is an 8-episode campaign, which is fully resettable, and we can do it again, which is great. And that was a ton of fun because it gave us like a storyline to follow, and it's such a good game that everybody that I've introduced it to has enjoyed it. And I've gotten all the expansions, all the different little modular maps, all the different bits and pieces. The only thing that I haven't invested in are the mechs are plastic, but you can buy metal mechs for the whole game, and they're expensive. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
It's like $400 to get all the metal mechs, and I don't want to quite do that.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is a gorgeous game.
Wow.
It's really cool. This is definitely one that I want to introduce to more people. So.
Okay. I've seen the box of this before, but I've never taken a good look at it. I've always just noticed like the people standing in the fields, and I presume that this is like a farm resource game because of the name of it. And now I see that they're all walking tank mechs in the background.
Yeah.
It's all
Well,
based
it's really
on
funny. Like there's Scythe encounter cards where you walk up and you're like, let me see if I can find one real quick. That's really funny. Well, I'll just think of what off the top of my head. So like there's these ones where you show up and it doesn't have any text other than your options, and it just shows like you showing up and there's like a farmhouse and a bear, and it's like, so you show up and there's a bear in a farmhouse. Do you want to let the bear tear apart the farm and you'll get some resources because you harvest all the wood, or do you want to like tame the bear and you'll have some entertainment stuff, or do you want to subjugate the people and make them work for you and you'll get a worker or something like that. And so you just get to do little encounter type things like that. It's just really fun.
That's like Arkham Horror.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's got these little things. I think you'd really like it, Brian. It's got that steampunky vibe that you would really dig.
It looks cool. I'd like to try it.
But yep, that's my number one.
All right.
Sweet.
Thomas.
My number one is Arkham Horror 2nd Edition.
Nice.
And again, this is not actually my number one favorite game, but it is. It's a game that, like Brian's experience, I spent a lot of time in college playing Arkham Horror, and I remember being really, really excited for board game nights. When new expansions were coming out for it, I remember taking time off of work to make sure that I wasn't gonna miss board game nights when new expansions were coming out.
Nice.
And we just got really excited about it. It's also the game that got me into Lovecraft because I knew absolutely nothing about Lovecraft or any of that kind of stuff prior to coming across this game. So I think it was that there's a lot of people who have it's a very good example that Brian has almost the same story that I do, because there was a lot of people that was their first kind of exposure to that sort of narrative. I don't know. Arkham Horror is weird because it's narrative, but it's also really rules heavy at the same time.
Yeah, but you have a character. You're not just a guy controlling some meeples.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of depth to it, but there's so much to enjoy in all that depth. Whether it's encounter cards, or it's the fact that there's a backstory that's written on the back of your character, and it's not like a sentence. It takes up your whole character folio card. And all the characters were totally unique. They had sliders that you used to change their stats, but not everybody's sliders were the same. Characters had very, very definite strengths and weaknesses, and games never played out the same way, which was, I don't know, it was really cool for somebody who was just starting to get into tabletop stuff. There really was nothing else like that. So yeah. Second,
the choice is it's very good. My entry, my game of choice in this genre is Eldritch Horror, the one that's sort of like Pandemic, where you're up on the world map doing this type of thing. And my very first board game that I bought that wasn't a Parker Brothers Monopoly was Mansions of Madness First Edition, which is Arkham Horror in a house. So, definitely like this style. I still have yet to this day have not actually played a game of Arkham Horror. So.
It's good. It's good.
Everybody owns a copy.
Zelda actually made our friend group T-shirts that said Team Arkham on it, and it had.
I think it was Zelda who was wearing one.
Yeah,
I remember seeing one at some point.
Yeah, and it's that cover photo of them like shooting the tentacles.
Right.
It was just like the silhouette of that, and it said Team Arkham. I still have it. It doesn't fit me anymore, but yeah. And I also I did a project in college that was kind of around it. I had to make a program for a fictional, you could make it a fictional school and stuff. So I made a Miskatonic University, and I looked up logos of squids and stuff, and that was our mascot. We were the Miskatonic Squids.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would include Arkham related stuff into my college projects whenever I could. So good.
Solid choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I too made custom Arkham cards. Like it's yeah. My card like the balance that I had was the card was OP, but I
Mhm.
I started the game in one of those areas where you can get a portal spawn turn 1. So that was the
Mhm.
risk. That was the risk. It was just like, yeah, you're kind of OP, but you might just die or go mad turn 1.
You'll
Like,
you'll get sucked into
yeah.
the other world right away. Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, like there was a program that I downloaded that lets you do it. There was a lot of fun stuff you could do with that game, even without like strapping all of the expansions to the core board.
We had a
All right.
guy after we'd been playing it for 3 or 4 years. We had a guy in my board game group who he's like, everybody owns this game and everybody owns all the expansions for it. He's like, I'm gonna take my copy and pull everything out except the core game.
hmm
He's like, so if we ever just want to play vanilla Arkham Horror, we can actually do it without taking 2 hours to pull everything out of it.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
call.
The stack of cards gets pretty tall.
Mm.
All right. So my number one
Mhm.
and my prediction, which came true.
Oh.
So my prediction was that this game would be on at least 3 out of 4 lists, and that is D&D,
I said-
specifically 5th edition.
Yep, I said 3 D&Ds and I said 2 X-Wings. I did not expect the 2 Catans. That was the one thing that I didn't know.
I was starting to get afraid that Catan was going to have equal number of appearances as D&D.
Which that would be a shame.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
Look, I was the first
D-
one to say it.
Yeah, I was just surprised that Ian's number one wasn't D&D, so we'll see. But yeah,
We'll
D&D.
see what it is.
I grew up at a time, like, even as somebody who grew up pretty geeky, even I thought D&D was too geeky for me. And I just found I was kind of like intimidated by getting into it. And then like when I was in high school, I tried to play in a campaign with some friends. Looking back on it, I'm pretty sure they didn't know how to run a D&D campaign. So I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I didn't get into it. It wasn't really until during college that I tried it again with a group of people. And even then, like, I was super awkward about it, and like, I didn't even know what I was doing. But started having fun with role playing, and 5th edition came out, and that was when I first had like the confidence that maybe I could even run my own game, which I did. We haven't played a game in it in over a year.
But it was awesome.
Well, thank you. I would like to go back to it. It was an airship campaign, and we mostly pulled that group together because it was like at the time a lot of us were like living in different areas. I'm pretty sure Ian and Ark were still in Brewer.
We were, yeah.
Yeah, Tom was in Boston. So it's kind of like, let's get a campaign together when people happen to be home on the same weekends. We'll just like get together and play D&D. And that's about how frequently we play because we're never all in the same place.
Yeah, it was a big table. It was like 7 players. It's a big
Yeah,
hard to get that many schedules to line up.
for real. And I'd like to continue it, but anyway. But yeah, D&D, we've already talked a lot about it. Even though there are so many rules I do not get, and I don't care about magic personally. Like that spell list is so intimidating to me, and I'll probably never fully play like a fully magic character. D&D just like as an entity is like so important to me. So yeah, there we go.
100% agree.
I think it is very telling. Like I know, especially Thomas, like there are a lot of RP systems out there, and we've played a few. Like, and I think it's interesting that of the 4 people here, no one has said any RPG system other than D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Ian, make us mad.
It's Pathfinder. It's not.
Shadowrun.
Which is basically 3.5. Come on.
Yeah, that's sorry, I got to revise my list. 5 is D&D First Edition. 4
Second
is
edition.
AD&D. 3 is 3.5. 2 is Fourth Edition. Honorable
Oh, my-
mention is D&D 3, no 3.5. Fuck that business. And then number 1 is Starfinder. No, no.
Ooh.
No,
Ooh.
I enjoy I've played a Starfinder campaign, and there was a lot to like.
I like
but
Starfinder.
but it's very rulesy, even for a D&D based system. Like I'm interested to play with a little, like, the DM that I played with was a good DM, but he's sort of a rulesy sort of gentleman. I'm interested to play with someone who is a little bit more loosey goosey. See how that comes out. But
That's kind of how I played. I kind of leaned on you and Ark in our campaign a lot for the rules, and I would just be kind of like, yeah, that sounds good. Take advantage on that roll.
that's it. That's how
Yeah.
advantage is determined. It's like, does the DM think, unless there's a rule that says you get advantage, does the DM think that, yeah, you should probably get a buff? Or,
Yeah.
no, this is gonna suck. Disadvantage.
and as Tom Cadigan would say, I would just debuff the hell out of him because all the things he was trying to do situationally. He's like, okay, you're a gnome, so you're trying to look into the hallway while you're in the middle of a crowded party on the dance floor. So yeah, disadvantage. And apparently I did that too many times, and now he's mad at me for it.
It's a lot of legs.
Yeah, you
but,
see a whole lot of legs.
and man, do you see a lot of legs. But yeah,
Mhm.
my number one, to wrap this out, is Risk.
Wow.
I'm not mad about that.
I'm not mad. I'm just surprised it didn't come up on anyone else's.
I'm shocked that it's above
Yeah,
D&D, but
see,
I'm
this
not
is-
mad about it.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
this is the thing for me. Like, there wasn't a lot of games that I put on here as like crazy sentimental. Risk does have a pretty good sentimental part to me. This was a game that I played in, like, both with family and with friends in basements so much when I was in high school and college. And part of it is of all of the games that we have on this stream here, all the ones that we've listed and talked about, this is probably the best selling of all of the games we've talked about, except perhaps the entire D&D franchise. Like,
yeah, that's probably true.
because it is one of the mainstream games. Like, this is actually, looking at, I think this is the only like mainstream tabletop game that we've put on any of these lists. But the rules are very simple. Simple to the point where everybody's played it wrong. Everybody's done those big late game reinforcements wrong, like we did for years with the group of friends that I played with in high school. But like, I just have very fond memories of time and again watching the Red Army just creep its way across North America down into South America and just wiping the board turn to turn. It's got a lot of disadvantages. It's like, obviously there are other games on this list, like Thomas mentioned Axis and Allies being a better Risk. It is a better Risk.
Small World's a better Risk.
Yeah, honestly, like, there's a lot of I think there are better games, I will concede. But for me, the number one tabletop game that I've played is going to be Risk.
I think that's totally fair. I think that that's reasonable.
It is. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, Bill mentions Risk Legacy. I haven't played Risk Legacy, but because it is a mainstream game, like, there is a flavor of Risk for every need. There's a 40K Risk. There's like Risk Fortress Europe, where it's just the European and Eurasian continent.
Star Wars Risk.
Star Wars Risk. Yeah.
Castle Risk, which I'm told is awful.
Yeah, I'm told that one's not great at all.
What is it?
My personal favorite is Risk 2210 AD, which is the future Risk.
Yeah.
where you had different commanders that you could purchase, and you could fight on the moon. And it also had a hard cap on turn, because after I think it was like 5 rounds, then peace broke out, and you just scored from where you were instead of being just like to the last man.
Yeah, slogging it out until someone quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could,
as Thomas mentioned before, someone turtles in Australia forever.
You could play it that way if you really. That was the other thing too, is there were underwater cities, so there were multiple ways to get into Australia.
I think that I have probably one of my favorite times that I had playing Risk was actually when we just busted out an actual map of, I don't even remember where we played, but it might have even just been the 50 states, but like just you can just play the same basic game, no changes whatsoever, aside from figuring out what, where the continent bonuses would sit. You can play it on just a map of Europe. You can play it on just an atlas if you want. Like, you got a map of Uruguay, you can play Risk on a map of Uruguay. Like, if you really want.
The 16 counties of Maine.
With a minimal amount of work, yeah.
Yeah,
a rustic.
There aren't a lot of these games where you could just completely remove the board and still play. With the exception of things like Coup and
D&D.
And
things that don't have a board.
Yeah, things that don't necessarily have a board to start with.
Twister.
No, Twister, you need a board, or I guess a tile floor with a funky pattern.
Floor.
Like that works, I guess.
It's a Sox game.
But yeah, I would say that's my number one. It's sort of an outlier, and yeah, but I think so.
That's a good choice.
Yeah,
It's a good game. I'm just again surprised that it's above D&D, but based on the
nostalgia point.
Nostalgia, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I ask you, hey, what are you doing this week? You've never said I'm playing Risk every night this week.
See,
that's true.
I admit that, like Risk came before D&D for me. Like it's definitely been supplanted.
Well, good. I don't think anyone's choice has really pissed anyone off, right?
No.
I would think he's young this week, Brian.
No.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for not picking StarCraft on your dinner table.
See, this is maybe this is what we need to do. Maybe we do need to just not do rules whatsoever.
Yeah, because I'll get stuck on them, and then I'll. Sometimes I just get lawful neutral.
Yeah, right.
Rules are rules.
I like to think of myself as chaotic, but sometimes I get pretty lawful.
Yep.
Well, yeah, lawful can be your own code too. It doesn't have to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah,
have
fuck
to be,
Monopoly.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No Monopoly.
Hoffman is mentioning it in the chat. Fuck Monopoly.
Yeah. Like it's not actually a fun game.
Yeah. I'll admit, I did date somebody once, and their favorite game was Monopoly, and
that's why the relationship
kind of. I mean, it didn't help. It didn't help. It's not the reason why we never played it together, because I knew that I was gonna hate it. But I kind of decided at that moment, like, I'm not sure if this is gonna work out.
I know a lot of people that have Monopoly as their favorite because of nostalgia, because they remember playing it as a kid and they remember playing with their family.
I've never played it right, I don't think.
Most people haven't.
Yeah.
It's like most of those classic board games, they've learned the rules. The rules have been passed down in this sick form of telephone, where nobody's actually sat there and read the rule book. Somebody did, and then they taught somebody, and they taught somebody, and they taught somebody, and the rules changed a little bit every time that they got passed down, because no one was like, well, I don't need to read the rule book. So-and-so taught me how to play.
Well, it's like that, yeah. Like last year, Uno was like, they issued their first rules clarification ever on Twitter, and they were like, "Sorry, you guys have all been playing Uno wrong," and the world was like, "Screw you,
Yeah.
Uno."
Yeah, we don't like your rules.
So,
We reject your reality.
So Brian, here I do have a game that you might have some fun with. It's the Doom that came to Atlantic City.
Wait, what? Like,
It's the Cthulhu-esque version of Monopoly. So it's Monopoly, and everything's set up. All the buildings, everything's done. But your Cthulhu monsters and the way you get through, and you're going through and buying properties, but you're destroying them. And the first person to destroy enough properties and buy 3 locations ends the game. So it doesn't just go on forever. It's actually
I like
really clever. It's a clever way to do Monopoly, but have it end.
yeah, I think that's one of the big problems with Monopoly. Like, almost every board game has a set, win condition, or at least a condition where everybody, loses, or where the game ends. Like, either be
The game ends, yeah.
yeah, like be a time, an event, when cards run out of the deck, something. Monopoly does not end until one person owns the board. But, like a functioning,
Like Risk.
economy, like, you can have an equilibrium that just lasts forever. Like, yeah, Risk, like, plenty of games have ended with 2 superpowers, a la Cold War, just staring at each other, just constantly pushing back, usually over Afghanistan, because it has the most contact with every other country on the board. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's like historically that's been a thing over the centuries, unfortunately. But like, yeah. So let's see. So if I don't think we have a lot of, we've been doing this for 3 hours, so I don't think we have time for a full master list.
D&D's
master
on
list
it.
would look D&D number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2 would be X-Wing tied with Catan, and then
Warhammer.
Maybe
Warhammer
Arkham Horror?
Betrayal's on there twice.
Oh yeah, Betrayal's on there.
Oh, Betrayal, and
right.
then the Arkham like genre has been mentioned a couple of times. Yeah.
I would try and argue the whole time pushing Settlers as close to the bottom as possible.
Yeah, I'm fine with Catan either.
Everything else I'm fine with.
Yeah,
there.
being 5 or lower. That's fine. Like, I know we both mentioned it for basically the same reason. Like, it's the ultimate gateway board game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with Catan. It's not my favorite, but
I mean, it's just,
I do.
It did what it needed to do for the history of the genre.
It did.
Right.
And like, we've all just been there, done that.
Right. Although I have a map that's New England for Settlers of Catan. Yeah. I've never played on that. I want to at least once, just to say that I have. But
sorry, Mel put in the comments. There's a Catan Junior now, so kids can learn how to end friendships too.
Valuable life skills.
Yeah.
Perfect.
If you guys want to talk about ending friendships, try playing Diplomacy someday.
Which is ironic.
Oh, is that bad too?
we had a guy in my games club in college who was like, I won't bring it because I want to play games with the people here again. He's like, I'll only bring it to cons and play it with people I know I'm never going to see again.
That's amazing.
Brutal. Yeah. Good. Oh, so next week.
Oh, God. Sorry.
So next week. Oh, yeah. Not next week. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, originally we were planning to have Mick come back for her second episode.
Yeah.
But there was some scheduling problems, so Mick will be back next time, which will be June 10th.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about film directors.
Yes. The predictions from 2 weeks ago still stand. I still got my post-it note for who I think is going to be the top director for somebody. But we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, my post-it is guessing who Mick is guessing. Nick was guessing that something was going to happen, and I'm guessing what Nick thinks is going to happen.
We're going. There's a lot of layers to this cake.
This parfait is deep.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think that's where we got to end it tonight. I made the mistake of having a bunch of bright lights in a room with a window screen that wasn't quite shut. So the bugs have taken this office.
Buggy situation.
Nuke it from orbit.
Yeah, it's yeah. But yeah, I want to thank my fabulous co-hosts here. Thank you for providing some honestly great, like nice, some great analysis on games, some good stories on games. Like I was fully expecting us to be like, no, that's not a tabletop game, at least once. That was my prediction for this evening, but it didn't happen.
You were the only one who tried to do that with Coup.
Yeah, well, I was just like, yeah, is this? And yeah, it is. Like, yeah, we agreed, it is. It fits a lot of the criteria, so it's all good.
Yeah.
And I want to thank everybody who watched. Like Mel, Hoffman, Bill, Rush. Like, thank you guys for chiming in chat. This was great.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah. Thank you for
Great
Sean
list.
for gifting a sub to Mel so she can use emojis now. And yeah, so do join us again next time. Ooh, sick! Look at all those bits. Thank you, Rush. My goodness.
Oh wow.
So many bits. But yeah, I'd like to thank everybody who watched. Come and join us in 2 weeks for the next 5-hit list. In the meantime, we will be back Monday night, 7:30, for what honestly may be the conclusion to Hellscape Navigators.
No.
I mean, it's dependent on what you guys do.
What if we do nothing? What if we choose nothing?
What if we all pull the sword at the same time?
What if we Guardian of the Galaxies this shit?
If you choose,
then everyone loses a limb. It just becomes the sword.
I mean,
Gilda can just rebuild limbs.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys choose to not to decide, you still have made a choice. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, we'll have a filler episode where we learn to drive.
Oh, we have a beach episode.
You already had an episode where you learned how to drive. You are licensed to drive in hell.
That's right. I have a license.
But yeah, maybe we do a beach episode. Everybody in our little Facebook chat figuring out the logistics for the campaign has been talking about doing a high school spin-off of the campaign. Maybe that's what we do next week. I don't know. This is D&D. We can do whatever we want. But again, yeah, come watch that Monday night. But until then, hope everybody has a great night and has a nice time. Good night.
Sports.
Everybody.
Oh, and thanks for our special guest, Thomas.
Yes.
Thanks for me.